Check 1, 2, 1, 2.
All right, good evening and welcome to this March 5th, 2025 Lower Makefield Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do the roll call. Supervisor Blundy.
Here.
Supervisor Ross.
Here.
Supervisor Lewis.
Here.
Supervisor McCartney.
Here.
And I am also here. Community announcements. Reminder, during this portion of the agenda, residents and youth organizations may call in to make a special announcement or contact the township at admin@lmt.org to request a special announcement be added to the agenda. The Yardley Farmers Market will be at the Community Center, 1550 Oxford Valley Road, the first and third Saturdays of every month until April 2025 from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Lower Makefield Township will be hosting another blood drive for the Red Cross on Friday, March 28th, 2025, from noon to 5 p.m. in the meeting room at the Township Building, right here. To sign up or get more information, log on to redcrossblood.org and enter sponsor code Lower Makefield, all one word.
And Dan, could I just add to that?
Please do.
There's apparently such a shortage, and, it's been for a while, but if you donate blood this month, you will also get a free A1C testing, which more people are pre-diabetic than they realize, so feel free to donate and find out how you're doing.
Great reminder. Thank you for that. You have another one yourself? All right.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to say that the Artists of Yardley has a new member show. The opening reception is Friday, March 7th. And I want to shout out our Historical Commission's own Joe Camerata. His use of light is amazing. You're going to definitely want to check this out. Again, it's at the AOI Arts Center, 949 Mirror Lake Road, which obviously, as you know, the Patterson Farm area.
As you know, my favorite artist there will be one Ms. Joanne Lewis, who is a phenomenal artist. I hear you might know her a little bit.
I'm aware of her.
Yes. And I'll actually give a shout out to an event I attended last weekend. The Pennsbury Elementary School Honors Band and then Honors Chorus had concerts on Friday and Saturday, and they did an amazing job. It was mostly fifth graders and others. It was really fun to watch. Very talented kids. Any other announcements from board members? No? Okay. So next item is item number 5, public comment on non-agenda items. So this is if you have comment on any items that are not on the agenda, please feel free to come up to the podium, or if you're online, we can bring you in there. And if you do, please state your name and whether or not you live in Lower Makefield Township. We have no public comment in the room. Anyone online or on the phone? All right. So that'll move us along to item number 6, the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items, are there any members of the board that would like to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda for discussion? All right, hearing none. Anyone from the public? All right, would someone like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda items as listed.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no noes, motion passes 5-0. Moving right along. Item 7 is the engineer's report you had in your packet tonight. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on the board regarding the engineer's report? No? All right. Next up, I will call up our relatively new finance director / CFO to give our 2024 financial presentation.
Dan, while she's getting set up, brand new.
Great. Well, yeah, so
The first
what was your
introduction.
start date? So Mega joined us. Oh,
No, yeah, you're gonna have to.
Get closer to the microphone.
phone.
Make sure it's
Make
on.
sure the green light's on.
Yeah. You may want to bring it to this, there you go.
Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Is that good?
Yes.
You're good.
Okay,
That
so
guy.
December 3rd I started.
December 3rd. So, and she's going to give us a nice presentation tonight highlighting what she's been up to and what she's going to be doing. But she's taken tremendous steps on getting into Lower Makefield Township's finances, tracking everything, coming up with new standard operating procedures to make everything flow that much better. And it's been a great addition to the team. You'll learn more about that this evening.
So good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well. As mentioned, my name is Megha Bandari, and I am the new Chief Financial Officer here. I'm very excited to be working here, and today I'll be presenting to you our 2024 financial presentation. I do want to make you aware that it is unaudited, so they're pretty final, but until the audit happens, they're not exclusively final. I'll specifically, like I said, be reviewing the unaudited financial performance of Lower Makefield Township for 2024, and these figures are subject to review and adjustments before the final audit is completed. And I just wanted you guys to also note that I will be presenting quarterly for you all. So every quarter you'll see a financial update from me in front of the Board of Supervisors and the residents moving forward, so that you guys get a clear picture and transparency of our financials moving forward. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to begin by providing an overview of all of our township funds, comparing the actual figures to both the budget and 2023 performance. After that, I'll take a deeper dive into specific funds, the general fund, park and recreation, pool and golf, and again compare the actuals to the budget in 2023. Finally, I'll review our ending fund balances or net position, depending on the fund, and provide insight into our cash position. This will give us a clearer understanding of our financial standing, progress, and highlight the areas which we need to focus on moving forward. Okay, so overall, the township achieved 94% of its revenue budget and 79% of its expense budget. While revenue came in 6% below the budgeted amount, the township successfully controlled expenses, which allowed us to keep spending below budget and ultimately exceed our revenue expectations. When you compare 2024 to 2023, the township showed impressive progress. Revenue increased by 6% year over year, while spending was reduced by 9%. This is after factoring in the recognition of the American Rescue dollars that we received in 2023. So even with the 2023 revenue, American Rescue Fund dollars, we exceeded our revenue over that in 2024. In addition, we also had increased our millage for the Road Improvement Fund in 2024. So this additional revenue is also inclusive of that. I just wanted to point that out. Together, these factors essentially balanced each other out, and on the expense side, we delayed some of our projects, which helped us keep spending lower than in 2023 and aligned in with our incoming revenue overall. So next I'm going to explain a little more about the general fund in detail. So the general fund is the township's primary operating fund for day-to-day revenues, and that's mostly for our residents to understand, and our expenditures. It makes it the key focus during the annual budgeting and planning process. In 2024, the township met its revenue target exactly by achieving 100% of the budgeted amount. This means that the revenue projections were very accurate. Most revenue sources either met or exceeded expectations, with one notable area being interest earnings. Interest earnings didn't decrease as much as we anticipated in 2023, and the township's strategy, in 2024, and the township's strategy of diversifying its investments helped lock in the higher rates, which helped us gain more revenue from that end. Additionally, the township secured higher than expected revenues from grants, fines, and forfeiture revenues, along with police services and local Act 511 revenues. On the expense side, The township came in at 101%. So that's slightly above what we budgeted, and there were a few categories from a higher expense standpoint, including engineering, legal, benefits, and salary and wages. The primary reasons for this overage are under budgeting for some of them due to unforeseen project changes and staffing updates. And then these adjustments were necessary for some emergencies that came about on stormwater projects and to accommodate higher than expected salary and benefits for new and existing employees in the competitive labor market.
Someone's on the phone, Dave? Is that what, sorry, the light's on. All right, we can do that after, we can take that call after during comment. Keep going, Megan, sorry.
Sure. So when comparing 2024 to 2023, the township saw a 7% increase in revenue in the general fund. So a significant portion of that comes from a planned interfund transfer related to the newly sold sewer authority. The township had budgeted to transfer over $1 million from the sale in 2024 to help balance the budget. Before this transfer, the township exceeded revenue expectations in a few areas, including interest earnings, which benefited from stable interest rates and the township's diversified investments. Additionally, revenue from grants, police services, and a slight increase in leaf assessment and real estate taxes all contributed to the overall increase. On the expense side, there was a 2% year-over-year increase, which is higher than the budgeted 0.5% increase. As mentioned earlier, a lot of this was due to unanticipated staffing changes, updates, and unforeseen projects that we didn't realize were going to come into fruition from emergencies. Okay, the next fund I'm going to be discussing is the Park and Recreation Fund. This fund operates across several different funds, I should say, the Parks and Recreation Department, and it has several different funds that we operate from. The Park and Rec Fund, which covers the township's recreational activities, like the summer camp that we have over the summer. The Park and Recreation Fee in Lieu Fund, which utilizes payments made by developers in lieu of dedicating land for public recreational facilities. And the Park and Rec Capital Fund, which is used for capital projects that we are now building for maintenance and other projects related. The Park and Recreation Fund and the Parks Recreation Capital Fund, you can see is more of an interchangeable fund. We usually transfer money from the Park and Rec Fund to the Capital Fund to save for maintenance and future projects. Additionally, the department does oversee the township's pool, but I'm going to be discussing that in a separate slide so that you can see that overall picture separately. In 2024, the Parks and Rec Department secured 75% of its budgeted revenue. The shortfall is primarily due to delays in grant-related projects. Grant revenue is reimbursed upon completion, so the delay in completing these projects both push the revenue and the associated expenses to later periods. Despite this, the department actually exceeded its budget in program fees and in the light cost recovery the fee that they put in. Additionally, interest earnings, which are allocated by department, also exceeded expectations, which you've seen throughout all of the funds. On the expense side, the department performed favorably, spending only 60% of its budget. A significant portion of that was that we didn't have a pool manager, or sorry, significant portion of that was delayed to the projects that we had, and the credits should go to that department for making sure that they maintain their revenues alongside with their costs. Okay. So when you compare 24 to 23, the Park and Recreation Department saw a 6% increase in revenue. That's including the newly created light cost recovery fee that they put into place, which was a new revenue source, like I mentioned. They still exceeded budget by over 3% on the revenue side, so we did see an increase of revenue year over year. Much of this was driven by the department's ability to raise program fees and secure additional state grants year over year. There was also a slight increase in real estate taxes, which was consistent in all of the funds. On the expense side, the department achieved a 4% year-over-year savings They effectively controlled costs and were able to support the pool through an interfund transfer, which we'll discuss in the next slide, all while staying under the prior year's expenses and the budgeted amounts. Okay, next is the pool. As all of you know, the township owns a community pool, and the Park and Recreation Department is responsible for managing it. Running a pool requires quite a bit of maintenance, time, and financial resources. Over the past few years, pool memberships have gone up and down, as everyone's seen. A lot of that's related to COVID and the decline with a lot of folks actually building their own pools at home and then not wanting to utilize the facility. We also didn't have a discount period last year, which was a previous selling point, which was necessary to cover rising costs. In 2024, the pool revenue came in at 79% of budget, with 48% of that coming from the interfund transfer that I discussed from the Park and Rec Department to cover expenses. Despite the efforts to boost membership through increased fees and incentive strategies, such as offering a free guest pass to the first 1,000 members who signed up, membership still fell short of the budgeted target. Interest earnings also came in below budget, as the allocation for interest is based on the fund's cash balance, which was lower than expected due to reduced revenues. But on the expense side, the pool was able to save. They came in at 75% budget, which was under the revenue, so we were able to make up the difference through that. Some of that savings was related to not having a pool manager on site, but overall, the team did really well with just managing costs effectively to make sure that we were still over on the revenue versus expenses side. Okay, and then if you compare 24 to 23, the pool did have a 2% increase in revenue overall. So despite membership going down, year over year, we did have an increase from 23 into 24, and from what I'm hearing right now for 25, we are seeing a bigger increase. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up year over year, so we anticipate even better revenues in 2025. So we're slowly bringing that up. The department worked diligently to increase membership fees and sales, so they successfully surpassed 2023. On the expense side, there was a decrease, primarily, again, due to the pool manager, as well as intentional cost-cutting measures to line expenses with lower revenue. So in addition to the pool, we have the golf course, which is managed by an experienced management company, Spirit Golf. The golf course primarily operates out of the golf fund, but it also has two separate funds that were established a couple of years ago for savings: the Golf Bond Repayment Fund and the Golf Capital Projects Fund. I won't go into details on those two funds, as they're small, and we're not really utilizing them for any expense at this point. They're just funds for savings for future projects and such. In 2024, the golf course exceeded its revenue budget by 15%. Golf participation, as well as food and beverage sales, performed well, and interests also exceeded expectations, similar to the other funds. On the expense side, overall spending was higher in some areas, but remained in line with revenue. It's also important to note that $755,000 of the expenses were related to interfund transfers. We had budgeted $755,000 of interfund transfers, one being $455,000 to pay off a bond loan to the general fund, where the general fund replenished the golf fund over the COVID years. And then $225,000 to future capital golf projects that we're trying to save. And last but not least, $75,000 to a golf bond repayment fund. Inclusive of all these transfers, the golf course generated a profit of $847,241 in 2024. In 2024 versus 2023, revenues exceeded 2023, while costs came in approximately at 10% higher year over year. As a result, profit decreased by 36,656 compared to the previous year. Again, it's due to higher costs. In speaking to the management company, salary and wages had an increase due to cost of living increases. In addition, much of the salary and wages lines for the golf course or the wage are tied to revenue. So, for example, if there's an event and there's revenue from the event, there's additional hires that are needed to satisfy the requirements for that event, and so there's additional pay. So, as revenue goes up, some of the expenses will go up in line with that. Also, in 2024, utilities went up primarily because there was a record dry spell in 2024. So the course had to purchase significant amounts of water, and the stress on the course also required labor with course maintenance areas. So that's the reason for the expense being higher. But overall, there was a profit. Okay, so as far as ending balance, as I discussed in the beginning, and net position, this is where we land overall for all of our funds as well as net position. Just an explanation, in local government, we typically assess our financial health by examining ending fund balances for governmental funds, which are used to account for activities primarily supported by taxes, grants, and similar revenue sources. And then there's the ending net position for proprietary funds. So some of our funds that are included in proprietary funds are the sewer fund, community pool fund, and then the golf course fund. I know we've sold the sewer fund, so once we close that fund and move all of that, really what's sitting there is just cash. There's no asset left. So we have to call it a net position because that's how the fund is allocated at this time, but eventually it should be moved to a fund balance. Proprietary funds, which I had explained, are used for business-like activities involving business interactions. So that's why we have to showcase fund balance and then net position for any of our basically properties that we own and have business-like activities. Overall, our preliminary ending balances and net positions in 2024 are higher than 2023 as well as 2024 budget. Some of these increases are due to interfund transfers, which I had discussed in the previous slides, while others are the result of higher than expected revenue, such as interest earnings exceeding budget. Additionally, funds like the bond fund saw an increase because we delayed some of our projects that we were supposed to use the bond funds for. So that led to overall lower spending and kept our fund balances and net position a little bit higher. Lastly, I'd like to show you our cash balances and allocation as of the end of 2025. Since I was supposed to do this at the last meeting, it's end of 2025. We didn't get a chance to update it. If not, I would have had February. But as mentioned earlier, we've diversified our cash, which has helped us earn more interest revenue. Overall, our cash balances remain stable, but it's important to note that a significant portion of our cash is tied to the sewer sale and the 2016 bond proceeds. The bond proceeds have to be spent sooner rather than later to avoid exceeding the arbitration restriction period. So we do have to look at that this year and really push to figure out what we want to do with that additional funding that we have. Okay, so to conclude, 2024 was a stable year compared to both the budget and 2023. The township worked diligently to secure revenue and manage costs overall effectively. However, we must look ahead and strategize on ways to increase revenues to sustain the service we provide. Eventually, we may reach a point where we can no longer contain our expenses and will require additional revenue sources to maintain operations. Many revenue streams are stabilizing or even declining. So without the sewer sale funds that we have, which is helping us keep in balance, and which we intend to hold as investments, and the bond fund that we have sitting and need to spend, our revenue base is shrinking. So we do really, really need to look at that and see what we need to do in the future. And that's what I'm here for, and I'm hoping to discuss more in the future as we come to that. So does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, that is
Open
it.
up to the board.
I hope that was beneficial and gave you some transparency.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you. Any specific question from board members?
Yeah, you mentioned the bond that we have to do something with this year because of the arbitration. How much is that exactly?
So as of today, it's about $4,109,000-ish that we have to spend sitting in that bond fund. We do have some allocated projects this year in special project funds that we are looking to, we've budgeted to use some of that funding for, but there is still going to be some sitting in there. So we do need to relook at that. And we can talk further on that.
Yeah, that was the only question I had on that. And then if you go back to the golf,
Sure.
what was the total net gain for the golf course then in 2024?
It was about around the same as the prior year minus the 30, so about 800 here. In 2024, it was like, so with the transfers, because we do the transfers, it's
Sure.
about a little, like about 800,000, 810,000.
So that's pre-transfer.
That's pre-transfer,
Okay.
yes.
Pre-transfer.
So if you take,
look
if you
in
take the
here-
755 and then the
Add it to the 92.
92.
Got ya.
That's essentially.
So post-transfer, it's roughly half because we're doing 450 about, you're saying back to the general?
No, we're doing 755,000 in transfers.
Okay,
So after that, it's 92,241 in 2024.
okay.
In 2023, it was 126,897.
And you said one of the biggest differences, the utilities. What was that cost for us in 2024? I know we had, we have leaking pond liners and we're bringing water in every month. Do you know what that,
I can get that to you. I don't have that off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I can get that to you.
okay.
I'll add that to.
That was it, thanks.
Any other board comments or questions? Meg, I just sort of, each of the funds in terms of revenue has interfund transfers, obviously. If, short version, where are those interfund transfers coming from that are booked here as revenue to each of these funds? And then when we look at that, if we were to not reduce interfund transfers and just rely on the funds to fund the funds, right? How would our financial picture look? That's something
Sure.
that I'm interested in.
So so first of all, I wanted to just, we budgeted these interfund transfers to basically to zero out or make sure that we made our numbers. And it's mostly towards the general fund. So most of the interfund transfers have been to the general fund. The other interfund transfers that we've generally done are really for savings. So for example, for the Park and Rec Fund, we have 2 interfund transfers for the capital reserve piece of it so that we save money for that. And then on the pool side, we have some pool capital saved. And then we have some bond money moving from the bond fund to the special project funds when we need to spend it. And then the other piece is really to the general fund. It's the extra sewer money that we had from interest last year that we utilized to
Yeah.
help us get through on the general fund side.
So those are going to the general fund, because of the way our limitations on how we tax, right?
Yes.
We're trying to protect our general fund generally. So I just want to understand, when we do, we also have funds coming from the general fund to these other funds, right? So like Park and Rec or pool or whatever, when we have to do some type of project. I just want to understand.
We
Yeah,
haven't.
they're not coming from the general
No,
fund.
they're not.
No,
Okay.
no,
No.
there's nothing coming out of the general fund.
Nothing's coming out of the general
So
fund.
Park and Rec transferred to the pool to help out. I don't necessarily, it was a budgeted item that's something we're going to have to watch moving forward,
Yeah.
more so when we budget and to understand the picture before you just transfer
Yeah.
funds. A lot of this occurred, unfortunately, like before. I
Yeah,
came
no,
on
you're the
board.
messenger.
But once we need to watch our numbers year over year and try to figure out what makes sense and what's needed. The pool probably, for the most part, could have sustained itself for the year with very little left over without that transfer. But for the most part, those are the kind of transfers we're doing. On the golf side, the $455,000 that we're doing is to repay ourselves from the general fund. That was the only time we've transferred out of the general fund
Okay.
to help. And that was in previous years. But for the most part, we had some sewer money that we transferred to the general fund. That was the biggest transfer.
Okay.
And that 450 transfer was the last time, or do we have one
We have
more?
one more this year.
This year, and
This
that's
year
it.
is the last year.
Got you, thank you.
And once we're done with that, there will be no more transfers.
So the only other one, I guess, is obviously the pool has been looking for more revenue. So I think one of the takeaways is that we got to look for ways to increase revenue and hopefully decrease expenses at the pool to make it sustainable moving forward, right? Okay. All right. Anything else from the board? I can open it up to public comment here if no one else has anything. Anyone in the audience have a public comment? Come on, Mr. Scholler. Reminder, please state your name and whether or not you're a resident. There you go.
All right, now we're on. I did not come here for this, but very good presentation. My name is Peter Solar. I'm a resident of Lower Makefield Township. I'll be up here again later, unfortunately. In any case, going to the pool, one of the items that jumped out looking at that, is it correct to say that there was zero spent on capital and equipment? Was that what the report said? So is that indicative that we're deferring maintenance and projects there that potentially would lead to increased costs in the future that would need to be budgeted
So,
to stabilize the pool?
So over the last few meetings, we've actually voted on multiple pool projects for that particular reason.
Okay.
So that's.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
all.
I think that's fair and not necessarily reflective of the actions of the 5 people sitting up here, and not to assign sort of blame, but there is some of that as a consequence of deferred maintenance over time, and so that's, I think, really the challenge in the pool fund is not in terms of meeting the operating expenses of the operation of the pool. It more relates to the fact that there's a pool from the 1980s that is, things are coming to the end of their respective useful lives. And so since there was an incremental spend on some of that stuff, that there are challenges on the capital side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room tonight? I know we have someone online. Bring them in.
Hi, my name is, are you ready for me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Welcome, Lori.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Lori Gray, and I am a resident of Lower Makefield Township. Is it Megan? Is that her name?
Mega.
Yeah.
Mega. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, welcome, Mega.
Thank you.
Great to have you on board. It's very refreshing. Your presentation was extremely informative and very, very much appreciated. Something we've needed in this township. So I'm very, very happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
At this point in time, I don't have any specific questions because you went through a lot of information, and I'm looking at it online. So I'm just looking at the screens, trying to capture everything, which actually leads me to my question of, will this information be available on the website for us?
Yes, not a problem. We'll go ahead and post it for you.
Okay, great. And then, therefore, if once I review it, if I have any additional questions, I can go ahead and reach out to you directly?
Of course, not a problem. My number and email are both on the website, so please feel free.
Excellent. Fantastic. Very good. Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else online? No one online? Well, thank you, Mega.
Thank you.
We formally welcome you, I guess.
Thank you.
And looking
Thank you
forward to
again.
more great stuff. All right. Well, I guess that's a good segue. Next item on the agenda, item 9, is an update on golf. So I believe, there he is. We have someone from Spirit Golf here to provide an update on some golf stuff. Dave, do you have any intro, or just let him take it away?
Yeah, sorry, my mic's off. As you said, Mr. Chair, we have Kevin here with Spirit this evening to talk specifically and provide an update on potential capital project and upgrade at the Makefield Highlands Golf Course. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin, and Kevin, myself, and/or Derek should be able to assist as we're going through the presentation. So, Kevin?
I know we have hard copies of stuff. Is there a presentation for folks in the room or at home, or is it just the hard copy stuff that we have?
I can grab one of the click shares and project the concept plan on the layout plan.
Sure. Yeah, apologize for not having that ready.
No, I'm just,
Thank you for having me this evening. Tough act to follow with Mega, to be honest. So what I want to speak tonight about a little bit is a bar renovation plan that we would like to do at the golf course. I have gone through with the other team members of Spirit and the Makefield Highlands staff, and then some guidance from Derek and a little guidance from Gabe as well to go through and create CoStar's contracts numbers for these things. If I can give you a little background, the Board of Health has been very cooperative and lenient with us as we've been flagged the last 2 inspections on bad plumbing. So we were kindly notified that wouldn't, pass again this year, and we would have to fix or close down. So until it was fixed. So that is kind of what led us to these conversations and creating this hopefully proposal for you. The Board of Health issue is about 3 years old, where there was some issues with the plumbing and leading to no hot water behind the sink, which is obviously not up to code, and the way it was plumbed 20 years ago made it impossible to fix by itself without undoing the rest of the plumbing around it. So there's some issues there that kind of led us to get here. The other issue too with the bar, and we've had a little issue with the golf course. With the golf course being 20 years old, we've noticed, that 20-year mark has created a lot of infrastructure stuff we're trying to go ahead and take care of step by step. And it's not a typical bar that you've seen. The bar services a lot of user groups. It's the turn window for the golf course. It's the a la carte service bar. It's the banquet event bar. So that space in the clubhouse basically services every user group that we have. So we've gone through and made small upgrades and changes as we can go, but we've gotten to the point where we feel this has to be done and repurposed. So if you want to go through some of the plan here, as you can see, right here you have an overhead view of the bar, and a main point is we don't want to change the footprint, and we want to keep all the available room in the banquet room available as it stands today. All of the numbered pieces reflect the first quote in the packet. Mainly, as you go in from the door on the left side there, we want to make sure that we have a 4-foot opening for deliveries and food coming out. So that room will be bigger than it currently is now. 3 foot is mandatory. We're looking for 4 foot to create less of a dangerous area because it right now is the most crowded area, as that is where the turn occurs, where people come to the bar, get their snacks and hot dogs and drinks and what have you. And then as you see, the rest of the bar is somewhat similar to what we have now. The back bar will be rebuilt in very similar fashion as it is now, with two tall refrigerators on each side, a low refrigerator on number 2, and some cabinetry. And what this does is take all of the existing refrigerators, wine cooler, snack stands, condiment stands that are in the ballroom now, and that will all get removed and put behind the bar where it should be. And that will create probably 4 new tables of room. And then the size of the bar itself will double the seating that we currently have at the bar. ADA compliant on the right side there. You'll see that little stick out here that was also in the packet with what is needed to have that compliance. And then on the right side, there is a access for the waitress and the bartender to get out of the bar on each side. That'll lead to better service, quicker food running, and easier to get out and clean the areas. So that is the concept. There's not a lot to it. We're not looking to change drastically. We're looking to upgrade the plumbing, get that to code, and then put a new bar in place. Right now, there's laminate on top and old wood, well, there was. And now there will be replaced with all new equipment, hopefully, a new bar top, and more seating. So that is kind of the focus of what we idealize there. I also have a back bar picture as well. And that is looking straight on from the front of the bar to the back there. You see the mirror was taken down. The mirror will go back. In the center there, the beer tap system would move from the left side to the center of the bar with 7 taps being increased to 10 taps of beer on draft. TVs across the top. We have 2 now. We would put 4 across the top there. That was important to some, word of mouth people in the golf, from the golf shop into the restaurant. Would like to see more TVs for games. Both tall boys on each side of the refrigerators, merchandising refrigerators. So that would be beer and wine and non-alcoholic soda drinks as well. A low beer fridge on the left side there, left of center, and then cabinetry, middle to the right there that you see. Those columns would be, plywood faux columns that would hide all the wiring we would need for the TVs and the cable down through to have that accessible. And again, not much change from what is there now. It will be updated. It will match the storage and buffet unit that was redone last year on the right side of the room. If you've been in there, this ideally would match that to create some symmetry in the room. So in general, that's a general look at the plan there. If there's any questions on that.
Kevin, I don't know if, just for the benefit of the board, maybe just sharing some information on sort of John's background would maybe be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, even before we get to that, though, you mentioned something that was really concerning that I wasn't aware of relative to the Board of Health having an issue there. And I don't know, was the township aware of that at any point? I don't believe that this board has been.
It's on file. The paperwork's on file that we were received, flagged, that it would be to be repaired. And then at that time, we were considering this type of improvement prior years, last year as well. So they gave us lead time to figure out if we were going to be able to do those improvements or not.
Right. So you said it was on file. Was it ever provided to the township so we could be made aware of it? Because I don't know that anyone on the board.
I would have to check on that. That was before first time was before I arrived, but I can check for that.
That's my number one concern. When the Board of Health gets involved with a township asset, it's not a good thing.
Right.
For anyone. And then this is the first time we're seeing a design for a new bar. I'm wondering why this. I'll ask a couple different. Maybe you can answer a couple different questions, right? When we're looking at different, whatever we're doing for a project, we're always look at design alternatives and what the cost benefit is associated with each of those alternatives, to build them, what the revenue generation is, all that stuff, right?
Sure.
And then, obviously, who did the design? Because I don't know that we were aware design was going on.
Sure.
So this is brand new to us. So can you give a little bit of history on how you picked this is probably where you're going, Dave. How you picked the person to do the design, and then what parameters they were given, and what alternatives, because we haven't seen any alternatives, obviously, what the alternatives could be to this design or some design, and what type of revenue generation that might lead to.
Certainly. So first of all, my apologies for that advancing without the board's knowledge. That was not the intent, and I think I'll fall on the sword on that. We misunderstood that we thought we were in a better place to start this work. With the Board of Health, we got letters of permit and stuff when we were moving forward. We had some conversations with township staff, but in retrospect, realized we did not have approval, and so that's an apology right there to start.
Appreciate. I haven't been there, so I haven't seen it, but I've heard that the I'll call it the current bar now. From what I'm told, it's the past bar has been removed.
It has.
So there's no bar there now.
Correct.
There's some temporary bar somewhere in the building.
That is correct.
What's the current situation?
So we are curtained off where the existing bar was. That is curtained off for construction purposes and to hide that from the customer. And then directly across the room, right from where the bar is, we created a temporary bar.
So the windows overlooking that, but sort of by the deck directly?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Obviously, I've been there before, so I know
Yes,
the layout.
yes.
So, okay.
So,
So anyway, and that was done without, again, we didn't know that the demo occurred too.
Right.
So that
That's-
possibly can affect revenue.
that is certainly the apology, that we jumped the gun. I think that is important to note, that we realized we jumped the gun. In essence of time and thinking we were in a different place approval-wise, we went ahead to start the work to, beat the season, and realized that was a mistake. And since then, there has been no work done since we realized that has happened. As far as John has been an employee of Spirit Golf for the last 20 years. He also has his own business.
At Distinct Hospitality?
Correct.
Okay.
Distinct Hospitality. John is a Johnson & Wales trained executive chef. You've seen him around the club. You've been there. You've seen him around the club before. He's been at different roles at the club over time, and always had this business on the side as well. So John is an experienced food and beverage person with buying power, and has done hundreds of jobs in the last 20 years, and he is an employee as well. So that is kind of the connection.
So so he's a chef. Is he also an architect or a contractor? Or is he just a chef that?
He's a contractor. He has his own design group, yes, his own design
I
company.
just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just trained chef. He was a trained chef as well, but I don't think he's done his chef work in a few years.
Okay, so he got into food area design because he
Yeah.
likes food,
Sure.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, understood.
So that's where we're at with John. John also did the work on the storage unit and the buffet on the right side. John did that work as well. So we've used John in the past. So, as far as alternatives, we were looking to replace what was there, not to overly enhance or create a different footprint or do anything. We're looking to replace what was there, upgrade the 20-year-old wood and the plumbing damage that was there, and then move forward with something in the same footprint. So,
I'm curious, we're always, I don't know if I can speak for the board on this, but I think most of us are usually looking for ways to increase revenue.
right,
Generally in food and beverage, that's always been something we talk about.
sure.
So I'd be curious, one, current footprint layout that you'd like to use, what you anticipate for revenue, if it's similar to since a similar footprint, do you expect similar numbers? Or is there an alternative that might expand the footprint, that might provide more seats at the bar and potentially more revenue?
Sure, this has been a
spending more
conversation over the years in different areas. And I think we have spoken with the board casually on these types of projects that are, dream projects down the road. I think we've spoken in that way. We did for the budget process last year, we did put together an ROI on several projects that we would like to have done or would like to do.
Yeah, I recall.
So that was our process to come up with this. The ROI comes in double the seating at the bar, which currently can only seat about 7 people at the current bar as it stood. And then to be able to remove all of the equipment and the tables and the refrigerators that are in the room would give us more seats in the restaurant as well. Those are our two main accomplishments by keeping the footprint the same, but being able to store and merchandise the bar properly as it wasn't now.
I understand. And that, so basically everything's been done, you're handling everything in-house, the Spirit, rather than going out and talking to other folks to see what they could provide, right?
There was some conversation, but there were years in the waiting line to get work done for some months or years down the road. And for us, as you know, it's timing is everything. If we can't do it in the winter, we can't do it.
Yeah.
So John was available to do it in the winter, and that was kind of where we were with that. So mostly a timing issue.
Okay. Dave or Maureen, do we have to, from a township perspective, I'm just wondering because we have to bid all kinds of stuff out, right?
Sure.
Do they have to go through the same process that we do, or is there something in their contract that allows?
So
them to do
they're self-performing the work under the management company that you've already hired, is what I understand. Is that correct?
Correct.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
It's
I just
not
wanted
Yeah.
eyes, T's, that type of thing. You
Understood, of course.
understand that.
Yeah, a lot of the I guess more recent work to Kevin's point, and primarily working with Derek, has been sort of on the procurement side of things, largely related to the equipment, which is again some of the items that were in the packet. If we get to that point, though.
Yeah,
obviously.
and then even though, so are you? And this isn't trying to be a gotcha. I just want to cover ourselves. Since John has this distinct hospitality group, are you writing checks to distinct hospitality, or are you basically paying him as an employee?
He's an employee.
Yeah.
So he would be on payroll.
Yeah, I just want to, you understand what I'm asking? It sounds like there's a separate entity that he's on the payroll, but sounds like he's conducting the contracting work through his other.
It was LLC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And does that put us in a weird, I'm just trying to.
I know where you're going, and it doesn't seem the correct way to do it, paying him as an employee for work that he's doing by his own LLC, who is conducting the work. So again, even from liability, responsibility purposes, we would look to the LLC. So we should not be paying him as an employee. You should not be paying him as an employee of Spirit.
Right, we have not done so yet. So,
Well, you're still in the planning phases?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, eyes, T's. And then in terms of actual construction, it's the LLC that will be hammering the nails and whatnot, or is that?
it would be John doing the bulk of the work, correct?
He'll get all the materials himself, or you might, okay. All right, and then schedule for doing it? It's probably in here, but what would be your schedule for implementing?
I think it depends on when we're able to acquire this equipment and get this on order. We're thinking 8 weeks from that time to be able to accomplish
Lead
most
time.
of the work, yeah.
Lead time to actually purchase and have it delivered, all that stuff.
Most of the equipment shows a 3 to 4 week lead time. Some of the refrigeration is longer, 7 to 8 weeks. Talking with some of the vendors, they said pre-order it's 7 to 8 weeks. Once it's on order, it shortens up. So we're still thinking we'd be okay in that 8-week window,
Okay. All right.
which would get us ahead of most of the event
yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I mean, generally, when you start ramping up from.
Right, so we're still quiet in March, and we were very quiet in February. And then, once the season gets going, golf outings begin in April, second half of April. So I would say anything from about April 15th on, we start getting busier with golf outings. So that was our kind of our soft target in our minds to be mostly done by. And then, as you get into May, closer to Memorial Day, then we're really full go. So we still have some time now where it's a little bit quiet, and we welcome our residents back from the winter and start playing golf more regularly. But from the event side, that will really pick up in April.
And you have, I'll call it the backup bar. It's probably not as functional as the former bar. And then at some point, you have the outside bar too for other events.
That's correct.
Not ideal situations, but you have something for at least.
Correct, yes. We can service the guests.
And do you have access to the kitchen with all this going on?
Yes.
Okay. And this doesn't include any updates to the kitchen?
Does not.
That's probably another conversation for another day. Okay, and I know you're dying, so go for it.
So Kevin, I've got a couple of them. One is when we first heard about the demolished bar, one of my fellow supervisors said to me, and I won't say which one because I don't want to throw, they were like, hey, I thought we agreed in November that every capital project would come to us before something happened, like, I don't know, demolishing the bar.
Right.
So can I have your assurance that's never, ever going to happen again?
Well, certainly, and I've definitely apologized for that.
Yep.
And misstepped on that, so I agree with you, that was a mistake.
Yep.
And then I think looking ahead, there was approved capital money, and we were targeted there, but yes, I completely understand your point.
And now while we were talking, I went through, and one of the things is I had never been aware of the health violation that you mentioned that's causing the rework of the bar. So I went back to, and by the way, I look at the health inspections of restaurants throughout Bucks County all the time. I went through the last 3 years of yours, and there was no mention of anything that would cause a bar thing. Now, there were some other stuff, right? But there was nothing that was in that report that would lead me to indicate, oh, something's wrong with the bar structurally. And to the best of my knowledge, none of us were made aware of that.
Okay.
So, and this is, sorry for leading the question, but why not? Why didn't you tell us, right? Or even the golf committee, because they were, to my understanding, not aware of that either.
Right. That could be on me as well, but again, I just started here this past year, so I was trying to do some historical work myself this year to get caught up on learning some of the Makefield Highlands business. I think maybe I thought that we were, as a township, that was on file, and it just clearly was not, but I will.
But I've, like I said, I went through 3 years of them, right? So, and all the standard stuff I see normally when I look at restaurants all around, and by the way, I have great respect for our Bucks County Department of Health. I know they're rigorous, and I love them for that.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. I use their reports, so that's why I'm like, it wasn't in there for the last 3 years, so we need to figure that out. Now, as it relates to the design, will this design improve drink or food delivery speeds?
Yes.
Okay, how?
Well, there will be more taps, more beers on draft. There will be access from both sides of the bar, which currently is not. There will be more room to work for the bartenders themselves. There'll be 2 active POS systems at this bar. So yes, there'll be a much more efficient, improved work rate.
Good. See, I watched that bar rescue and come up with good questions. How many speed racks are envisioned in this plan for bartenders?
Excuse me?
Speed racks?
2.
2. Okay, how many do we have now?
We have 1.
Okay.
What we're going to do.
Well, yeah.
Right.
So we're going to get 2 speed racks. So if we have 2 bartenders, they'll each have their own speed rack. Okay. Good. What's the planned merchandising to improve our average revenue per guest, right? What are we doing to make sure the back of the bar is promoting, for lack of a better term, the spirits that just generate the largest margin for the township and highest dollar value? What are we doing back there? Because if you now have larger refrigerators, is that going to obscure both TV viewing and or high-value stuff?
So both refrigerators are on the floor.
Okay.
TVs are above.
Okay.
So there's no obstruction of view.
Kevin, is this showing that, all right?
Yeah.
If you look at the TVs are on top.
Yep.
There, and then both tall boys on the right and left are the merchandising refrigerators.
Okay, so we're good on that.
Right.
TV size, the 2 TVs we have now, they're like 60-inch?
Not quite.
Okay, so what are we getting here with 4? Are those all going to be larger TVs?
They are.
Okay,
Right,
well-
I think they're proposed right now at 60,
Okay.
but I think that will be a trial and error to see
Yeah.
what fits best, but
The larger the set size, more people can see from a distance.
agreed.
Okay. All right, I don't, this is not, hopefully we don't have to do this again.
Yes.
Just- Okay,
Understood.
that's all I got.
Any other board?
Yeah, I'm going to be quick so that we don't keep everybody waiting. But I think everyone on the board knows, for me, it's particularly disappointing since, you know, if you ever want to talk to me, I'm there every Friday night. It's a fun place to hang out. I see you, and not a word. And I think John and Jen have made it really clear, this is not how we operate. It's not, I mean, I guess I should be glad you didn't say anything to me, because I don't speak for the board. But at the same time, we are so accessible. I don't understand how this happened, and it can't happen again. I am not a specialist in design. I don't get that design. People do comment about it's, you know, a nice place to hang out, but you can't watch TV. People want to watch sporting events. I don't think everybody wants to be staring over the bar like this, trying to capture the game. So it would be would have been a good thing if we could have given some input. Because it is our asset. You're there temporarily running it for us, but it is our asset, the township's asset, and we have to make sure that the decisions around it are made in the best interest of the township. So I appreciate that by changing, well, I'm not even sure what you're doing, because you said you're not changing the footprint, but somehow you're getting more seating, so that confuses me. But moving on, I appreciate that somehow we're going to get more tables there, which I assume is going to help with our banquets as well, because sadly, you can come and talk to me on Friday nights because I'm pretty much the only one there. So come, there's plenty of seats, and there'll be even more soon, allegedly. But I think we'd like to hear some more details about what you're thinking about, because it's not really making a lot of sense. So trying to find a balance between getting this going, because here's my other pot shot at you. Winter is almost over. Instead of winter is coming, winter is leaving. So an 8-week time frame puts us into spring. We've missed that. So.
I understand. Thank you for your comments, and, you know, again, I apologize for what was done ahead of time. Right now, the bar has an awkward angle that you're not able to sit at on the front bar. Straightening the bar ledge out does allow for more seating, and then more seating around the right side as well, which currently doesn't really exist. So there will be more seating there, as well as more 2 tops or 4 tops in, as you
Like
mentioned.
you're baiting me. It doesn't exist because that's the door.
Yeah,
You can't sit there because people will be whacking you when they come through the door, but more detail at a different forum would be better.
Yeah. I think personally, I'm a little concerned about how or I don't know if concerned's the right word, or I'd like more information about the LLC and how that works, given what we're doing with a township asset. It's not Spirit necessarily doing the work. It is the LLC that's a contractor, and we want to make sure that we're squared away with them. And then to Supervisor Blundy's point about having input into the design and seeing what some options are. Personally, I'd like to see a few options to see what we could do, because this is, you know, we're talking about 8 weeks, but it's going to be there for a long time, right? So where that may outlive all of us on the board, that may outlive Spirit at Makefield Islands, that's going to be someone else's issue at some point in time, because we're not building these things every couple of years, right? So personally, I'd like to I don't know that I could vote for this proposal tonight, but others may have a different view, and that's fine. But I would like to see some options with some numbers tied to it, and then just get some clarity on how, when it comes to design construction, make sure we're in the clear on the LLC, or if we have to do anything else from a contractual perspective to make sure that's, you know, copacetic. I don't know if anyone has any other ideas.
I mean, my only concern, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's, spot on, right? But we're in this position now, right? And we don't want to be hemorrhaging money. So how do we keep it moving, but ensure
Yeah.
we keep it moving in a way that meets the needs of the township?
No, I hear it. So I think, I'm thinking out loud, it sounds like you have a setup now that can work for some amount of time, but we still want to expedite. We want to move things quickly. We don't want this to be a 6-month discussion by any means, because that doesn't work for anybody. So I think if we put some options together, I understand, looking up like this at TVs, if there's other options for layouts or whatever.
Right.
Just looking at the elevation view.
I mean, all the TVs are tilted to you. This is any sports bar you go to, TVs are above your eyesight and they're tilted down. That would be no issue.
Yeah, and just if there's other options around the interior of the building for TVs that, in this general area. Supervisor Blendy made a comment that I was thinking about as she said it, actually, about just if we could understand where that door is, the main entrance. My recollection is next to the old bar, there was the sign about what's on tap, and then immediately next to that, and that was off to the side of the bar a little bit, and then you had the door right there. I'm trying to, just spatially, I'm trying to figure out, because it's not on this design.
Right,
How close that door is, too.
Yeah, it's a 14-inch window. There's about, I think, 7 inches of wall at the end of the bar, then there's a 14-inch window, and then the door begins, so.
So there's not a ton of space in that.
Not a ton of
There's a
space.
walk, to your point, you could be close to traffic.
Right.
Okay. And then I don't know that we explained the bottom of the picture there, what you got going on there.
That would be the framing of the bar on the outside,
Oh, okay.
pushed up.
Okay. So is there anything else going on in that part of the building, across from the bar, or any other location, or is it just bar only? There's nothing up against the windows you're planning to do, or anything like that?
No.
So you're still going to have the high tables right there, and then some
Correct, yes.
same tables?
Correct.
Same layout, or different, slightly different?
I'm sure it would change. It changes per event and per day, so.
I got you. Okay.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Is there any, point of reference that you can give us that Distinct Hospitality has done similar projects that we can kind of look at and say, this looks awesome, it would look great at our course?
Sure. I can get that information.
Yeah.
He did the other work next door. I know that's not a bar, but he did that work in a short amount of time on the right side of the building, and aesthetically, we're looking to match that on the bar
Inside?
side.
Okay.
So is this something, if we wanted to get some of that information, clarify things, that we would look to potentially table, or would we vote it down now and then move on?
Mr. Chair, my only concern is that time is of the essence, right? So we have 8 weeks to get this before we get to April 15th. And my fear is that if we don't execute, and I completely agree with you, the process stunk, right, for all of us. But I think that if we don't execute what they need, is we're going to start seeing an impact on profitability at the course, and that's gonna hurt us.
Banquets.
Yeah, so my response is I agree with you. But here's the but, right? Can we do something a little bit better? Because we're gonna be stuck with it. Compound, if we can do something a little bit better, we're gonna be stuck with this for 15, 20 years. So some potential short-term loss in revenue could be long-term much more revenue.
I'm just looking at this, so that you're projecting the ROI for bar renovations to be roughly $81,000 a year?
That was our projection.
What's the total cost of this project?
Would be in the 120.
Yeah, we're thinking 120, 125,000.
I mean, we're recouping it in
Year
18
and a half.
months, right?
But the larger question, of the 120,000, how much is, for lack of a better term, sunk cost because it involves woodworking and placement of stuff? Because what we could be saying is, I have the same difficulty all of us do. If that's like $30,000 or $40,000, right? Maybe we take the risk on that because most of the expenses in the refrigerators and the TVs are cheap now. It's like they're, $1,000 a pop, but then you say, if this is screwed up, right? If we know we're not doing well or some stuff, we come back and say we want to rework this in the off season far in advance of opening day, right? Then we're looking at a loss of, say, 40,000 and not 120.
So, yeah, so, and another alternative is if you think, much of the cost is equipment, right? We have a whole booklet of refrigeration and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that would have to change if there was a different layout. So could you?
All of it, probably.
It's that specific to a,
Yeah, I mean, everything's going to be retrofitted,
Everything's
refrigerators
custom.
and that sort of thing. Kevin, the biggest lead time is the actual ordering of the equipment, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So unless,
But if there's a redesign, that may mean different pieces of equipment from different vendors that have different sizing that would match the new layout. So it would be starting over.
so essentially you need the approval of the layout first in order to confirm the equipment that you need for that specific plan.
Correct.
yeah, because every layout has different equipment.
Custom, yeah, custom equipment, yep.
How quickly could you get us a couple of options to look at? Could you come back next meeting with a couple of options?
Dan, are you asking for options about the layout or options of the aesthetics? I'm
Both.
not trying to,
Both.
Sure, yes. We'll get them as soon as possible.
If you could come back next meeting with a couple of options, different sizes, different layouts.
That's next month,
No.
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. Is there anything you'd like to
19th.
see specifically in those options?
I'll only speak for myself. If there's any, I would be interested in something that provides potentially more seats,
Okay.
and more, more flow, as it were. Even if it's a little bit more of a spend, just to see what the ROI would be on that. See if we could get a significant increase by doing something a little different. I don't know that we'd ever want to go any smaller, but if folks are interested, sure, but.
I think it would be helpful if you brought the picture of the other side, so that, I mean, I know what it looks like, but I don't know that the other supervisors do, so that they could at least understand what the current vision is and maybe weigh in that way.
Yeah.
Sure, the current vision is definitely a Band-Aid until this was done. It's not an attractive, are you talking about what's there currently? today?
I
No,
think,
no, I
I
know
think the
I know
buffet,
what's there right
the
now.
buffet that was done, so
Oh,
the
oh,
storage.
The other work
the
that's been
that-
done.
Understood.
You're
I
referencing
understand.
something that I'm
Understand.
not sure everyone knows.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm sure most
And-
people in the audience don't know.
I think I get for example, the elevation view. I think I can probably envision what that's going to look like. Not that I go to a lot of bars all the time, but it looks like the sort of the fake stone there is going on the pillars and, colors, whatever colors you choose to paint, whatever, and where the mirrors
It would match the buffet on the other side of the room.
exactly match.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you can have photos of that
Primarily.
render, whatever it is,
Certainly.
something quick and easy. And maybe if there are any, depending on how big that gets, I don't know if there's much flex in that, given where the window is and where the door is. If there's any other, to Supervisor Blundy's point about different layouts and with refrigerators or whatnot, just a couple different options to look at by next meeting. That way we can present it, go for it, and make a choice. That'd be great. And then if we can, getting back to the contractor doing the work to make sure everything is buttoned up, so we're all good.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking about the contract, we have a contract with Spirit, and perhaps an addendum might be required in this case, so that we don't have these sorts of things happen again, and sort of process for that, so that that's clearly understood. I haven't looked at that agreement in a couple of years. It's like 30 pages, but we need to make sure that we've got some traction on
Yeah,
that.
and do our
Yeah,
terms
I-
flow down to anyone that they use, or do we?
I'm not certain. I'm sorry, what was the question?
So we have a contract with them with terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Different parameters,
Oh, you're saying
If they're
that the
hiring someone,
terms
do
and
their
conditions that
terms
they
extend to their contract?
I mean, we would have to look
I've been
at
part
it.
of contracts like that, I just don't recall this one.
I did email it to you. We'll take a look at it as well, but I did send you the current agreement, just as we were sitting here, so.
Okay, that would be one
We've looked at, and Kevin, in the, between now and the next meeting, hopefully sooner than later, can you forward to me documentation reference with relation to the LLC, the hospitality design? And I can do a search on that and look at that information.
Yep.
Thank you.
All the general contractor requirements, right? We just need to know we need to know who's working for the township, that's all. So with that as an approach, do we need to table, or are we just giving them direction to come back in 2 weeks and?
I think it's really one and the same. Your table, you're continuing it. You're continuing the discussion until the next meeting.
Motion or no motion?
I don't think you need a motion.
You good?
Okay.
Do you have what you need? I also want to make sure you have all the information you need to.
I
go back to
believe
your
I
team.
do, yes. I believe I do.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 10, Manager's Report. Thank you, Kevin. Item 10, Manager's Report.
Yes, excuse me. Sorry, readjusting over here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The first item under my section of the agenda is consider the appointment of Morrison Cogen LLP to serve as the calculation agent for the Lower Makefield Township Trust. As the board is aware, there is a trust agreement. Within that trust agreement, it requires the appointment of a calculation agent. The definition of the calculation agent in the trust agreement is an accountant, accounting firm, or other individual or entity appointed by the township to make certain calculations and give certain directions under the agreement relating to distributions and loans. So as was talked about during the 2025 budget process, 2025 is the first year in which a potential interest distribution is permissible from the trust. And so in order to calculate what a potential distribution would look like, we would have to engage a calculation agent. So did attempt to reach out to multiple firms. This is relatively, I would say, small work. It's not overly complex, not overly time consumptive. The only response that we got in terms of a proposal was from Morrison and Cogen. And again, it is a time and material proposal, which again, we're not anticipating much time in terms of doing the calculation. So we would recommend the engagement if the board is so inclined.
So moved?
Second? Second?
So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Kratzer, you said this is a time and materials. It doesn't have,
Not to exceed.
there's no not to exceed in here without prior approval. Is there any budget estimate provided so we can manage to that?
They did not provide that. Again, I think they're thinking it could be an hour or two at most. Again, what they're doing is noted on the exhibit, which was attached to the proposal. So as you see, it's basically taking numbers from the PNC trust statements and doing those basic calculations that are reflected there. I'm happy to circle back on that, but again, I'm at most we're talking about a couple hours of work, I would imagine.
Okay.
As long as we don't anticipate it's going to go more than a couple grand.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
No, I'm not used to seeing,
Yeah.
I'm not used to seeing time and materials contracts with some hourly rates and no estimates.
Yeah.
That scares me.
And this is a requirement of the trust agreement, correct?
This is a requirement of the trust agreement, yes. So in order to potentially take the distribution, you would have to engage a calculation agent for
Yep.
purposes of doing this, yes.
Yep.
So I'm happy if there's some sort of parameters you want to place on it in terms of, a not to exceed amount, that could be done through motion, and we could communicate that back to Morrison Cogen.
And we could, when you say a couple of hours, really, it's not like 10 hours, it's really like 2?
I mean, it should be. I mean,
It should,
I
okay.
probably, Mega probably could do this and provide that to them for
Yeah, we
certification.
just need someone.
She's
to
hired.
do it. Okay. Would anyone like to put a cap on, not to exceed? Doesn't mean they can't go above it, we just have to approve it for them to go above it.
I was just going to say, isn't there a specific verbiage in the trust agreement that says that this has to be done within 90 days of approval of budget? I think you and I were reading that at some point. There's like a time constraint on when.
Yeah, again, there are parameters in terms of timing. I believe you're right. I think it is.
We're
I think it
close.
is 90 days of the start of the year that the work needs to be done. Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem approving it, I just would like to put a cap on it that we can manage too.
I'm not approving it.
Are you not? Okay.
5,000? 5,000? Is that a good number?
I'm sure, that sounds like
sorry,
it's.
John.
I mean, that seems
Much
well.
more than
That seems.
enough.
I would.
Sure.
I think if you establish that, we'll easily be able to manage to that. I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would.
So I would accept,
say
I would
what-
accept 4, I would, whatever people think, I would accept that amendment.
It's a reverse auction here. 1,000, 2,000, whatever, yeah. Any recommendation?
4,000.
4,000, 2,500? Wouldn't-
Yeah. I mean, again, perhaps 3,000. I would
Three?
think that
3,000.
that's 10 hours
Three.
of time. So
All right.
again,
All right.
I'm not.
Deal.
Someone want to,
Who made the
John accept
motion?
the second?
Suzanne.
I made it, so,
you made it?
yep, so
And I second it, so I re-second it with the $3,000
right.
cap.
excellent.
So the motion is to approve this agreement with a $3,000 not to exceed cap without prior authorization from the board.
Sounds good. Yep.
Deal? Okay. Any more board comment? Any public comment? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Opposed.
Oh, sorry. Slow rolling, isn't it? Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, Derek, do you want to come up here, or just in the event there's questions on this? So the next item is consider the proposal from Bowman Consulting Group. This is also a time and material proposal with a not to exceed amount of $41,400 for engineering services relating to the automatic red light enforcement grant that the township had received back in, I believe, 2017 to effectuate intersection improvements at the intersection of Makefield Road and Big Oak Road. The grant, while has been extended multiple times from the date of award, you may recall last year we made a request to extend this one last time. The current completion deadline is December 21st of 2026. I don't know if you have any other sort of context that you want to share with the board, or Derek's here to answer any questions they may have. But we are getting close from a timing standpoint to be in a position to obviously take advantage of the funding that was received for this project.
All right. Any,
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the proposal from Bowman Consulting Group in the amount of $41,400 for engineering services related to the Yardley intersection improvements at Makefield Road and Big Oak Road.
Second.
any comments or questions from the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. The next item is consideration or consider adoption of a township vehicle use policy. So again, there are a number of vehicles in the fleet that are not marked vehicles. There were no sort of policy parameters governing sort of the use of those vehicles. So the vehicle use policy essentially establishes sort of the parameters associated with use, who's authorized to use township vehicles, elements relative to vehicle maintenance and care, fueling and expenses, some safety and compliance measures, and then some provisions in the event that there are violations of the policy. And then all those that are assigned to use a township vehicle would be expected to execute an acknowledgement form indicating that they've read, understood, and agreed to comply with the policy. So, again, there is not an existing policy, but we felt that there was prudence in establishing a general policy as it relates to use of township vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any board comments or questions? Okay. Any public comment? Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right. Item number 11, Public Works Department.
Good evening, Board. This evening, in front of you, I have item 11A is the consider authorization to purchase 2 John Deere 960M zero-turn mowers. This would be one would be used in the Parks and Recreation Department, and the other one would be for the Parks Public Works crews. Net cost of this purchase would be $19,738 or $743.08. This is through a CoStar's contract. Also with this would be authorization to trade in an existing zero-turn mower from the Public Works Department and also an existing mower from the golf course that they're not utilizing anymore due to inoperability. Any questions on that item? Be glad to answer.
I mean, both of these were contemplated from a budget standpoint?
Yes, both of these were budgeted items, correct.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any board comment or questions? Public comment or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Next one.
Thank you. B, I have in front of you to consider authorizing the purchase of a 2025 Moorbark 1000 tub grinder at a cost of $659,750. This is a Sourcewell contract, and also with that would be the purchase of a 2025 Volvo EC140EL excavator at a cost of $167,640. Again, another Sourcewell contract. This is a total combined cost of $827,390. This purchase is funded in full through an awarded statewide LSA grant amount in the amount of $827,392. So we are $2 under the full funded grant amount.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions from board members?
Who doesn't love a tub grinder?
Right?
Tub
Tub
grinders
grinder
rule,
that's
dude.
paid for by grants is
Yes.
even better.
And $2.
And 2 plus $2.
$2 on the budget, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to return those $2.
And a big check. And a big check back.
Presentation. Any public comment or questions? All right, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
Real quick on that, do we know who got that grant? Who wrote that grant?
Who wrote the grant? Derek
I
wrote the grant.
Thank you.
Wrote it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, applaud you for doing that. Yes, thank you so much.
I didn't get what I asked for. We asked for the same size, so we didn't get our $1.4 million. So we're getting a smaller one. We're downsizing, but it's still
okay.
It'll
Thank you
still-
for your
it'll
work
still
on
do
that.
everything we do.
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
work good.
Nice.
I mean, in actuality, it worked out because there's some additional versatility with the excavator that could be used
Correct.
for other purposes.
Like the one we have now, the large one, obviously has a boom. It's massive. It's way bigger than what we need here.
This is a little smaller
So
than.
this is smaller, and the grant is actually allowing us to buy an excavator with it to load it. Now that machine could be used for other things. So
Cool.
we're actually benefiting.
Thank you,
pretty good
thank you,
with that.
thank you.
Cool. All right, 11C.
11C in front of you, I have consider the proposal from PR Painting for painting at Patterson Farms. So this is something I was working with.
Should we have Peter join?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
assuming-
Yeah, come on up, Peter.
Working with the Patterson Farm Implementation Committee. In front of the board, you have a few different scenarios that we were able to get done through our painting contractor. We had priority group 1, 2, and 3 that Patterson, the Implementation Committee kind of went through and did a grading scenario of what they felt would be best suited of the funds. So I know in priority group 1 was the Patterson Farm, the Patterson side, which is obviously the AOY side. That would be the main barn, the small cottage, the Atera Studios, the main house, which is AOY, which they're occupying, one of the smaller sheds on that side, and it would actually go on the Satterthwaite side, and we would paint the main barn on that side, over on the Satterthwaite side. The total cost for priority group 1, including materials and labor, would be $138,670. That that includes a lift rental for those buildings, just the way we broke it up. So they had their lift covered in there. And then that does include about $15,340 as a repair allowance. Again, the intent of this is not to bring it back to historic structure, it's to preserve it. So once we get into a contract with PR Painting, we'll go through each structure. They're going to itemize a quick repair list, making sure we're within that $15,000, or hey, if we want to spend a little bit more, they're going to itemize where those repair items would be. So that would be priority group 1. Priority group 2 that the implementation committee went through, that would be on the Patterson side, the pack house shed, one of the 2 garages on the Patterson side, and also the small barn on the Satterthwaite side. Again, priority group 2 would be a total cost of $39,250. And then just for the board's knowledge, the only 2 buildings that would remain left would be priority group 3. That would be on the Patterson side, the small barn. I think it's an open 3-bay barn on the Patterson side, and it would be the Satterthwaite main house. So to complete priority group 3, if the board so choose, it would be $62,260 for priority group 3.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know, and again, I apologize, I don't mean to jump in, but perhaps you maybe provide some context on sort of the prioritization and sort of the recommendation of the committee may be helpful.
Yes, so the committee is recommending priority groups 1 and 2. It was in the ad hoc committee's report to prioritize stabilizing the exterior of the buildings. One of the expected discoveries, unfortunately, was that all these buildings have lead paint on them. And additionally, additional investigation since the ad hoc committee report has shown that many of these buildings have significantly more structural and carpentry repairs than what was anticipated during the ad hoc period in the Seller-Drury report. So the committee is looking at this as, for groups 1 and 2, as an attempt to stabilize the buildings, prevent the buildings from deteriorating further, improve the appearance of it, which has been a major concern of many residents of Lower Makefield, and to allow us to start moving forward on other items. Notice we're not recommending group 3, and that includes the Satterthwaite farmhouse. There's a significant amount of structural and other work with that, and we're thinking about, in one fashion or another, particularly Patterson Farm Preservation is involved, getting the whole envelope done as a whole rather than going in, painting it, and then 6 months later, stripping it off again. So that was the thought process there. The carpentry repairs, to reiterate what Derek said, they're going to be more, they're going to be more minor. They're not going to involve repairing the windows. It's not going to involve wholesale residing. It's stabilizing immediate things that they've recognized as rot. They did provide some detail on that in their proposal, but no structural items, no windows. Those would all be part of future packages. Again, the process here was to stabilize and prevent further deterioration and allow us to proceed with soil remediation as potential next step around some of these buildings. Again, another ad hoc committee priority.
And then
Well, before we start asking questions, do we want to get them? Oh, I'm getting it closer again. I'll ask questions later, but does someone want to make a motion? Are we ready to make?
So
a motion?
moved.
Okay. Anyone want to make a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Get that out of the way. Now open up.
The
board
motion maker was motioning for 1 and 2?
Yes.
Okay, just
Yes.
clarify.
One and
Yeah,
two.
with the
The
your
recommendation.
recommendation, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And Dan, before we ask questions, could we give Peter 2 minutes so people who are listening understand not only that he's an incredible volunteer for the township, but his professional background, so they understand some of the influence he has when
Sure.
he speaks?
I was going to ask him lead-in questions to that, but I'm happy for him to jump into it.
Hi, I'm Peter Soler. I'm a resident of the township. I've been involved in a few committees here for the township. My professional experience relative to to the work that's programmed at Patterson Farm and my involvement with the committee there is that I have decades of experience as a construction project manager with specialization in historic projects. I've managed projects at Pennsbury Manor, Washington Crossing State Park, and I'm currently involved with managing a project for Independence National Historic Park for the Park Service as their construction manager. But extensive experience outside of that. The projects that were on both Pennsbury Manor and Washington Crossing were primarily exterior restoration projects, so that overlaps with exactly what we're talking about here. But I've gone through these buildings and provided my own analysis and additional reporting, which the committee is helping to use for discussions on budgeting.
And I can say as the liaison last year, when he was doing all this, they were quite detailed. And I don't know that we could have paid a consultant to do as much as he did, the way he did it. And it was great. Question for you, Peter. Did this particular, any of the painting companies where you got proposals from, did they do a walkthrough to put their eyes on things themselves?
Yes, I did walk through. So this is a CoStar's contractor. They did walk the site with me actually once or twice, I think, 2 or 3 gentlemen from the company. So they, and I actually didn't realize that there was actually, like, I'm going to call it the first iteration quote that they did provide. That is pretty extensive in terms of photographs of what they see in terms of rod of what they want to repair. So I can forward that off to you guys. Don't look at the pricing or anything. It's just, good information. But they did some extensive exterior walkthroughs. Again, noting that the intent is just to try to stabilize the structures, not do a historic preservation is get a lot of Band-Aids on it to get us further along until we could do a nice historic or restoration of the exterior of the structures.
Yeah, and the main reason for that question is to make sure they understand, we understand potential for those repair contingencies that they have in there.
They're pretty confident in them. Like I said, once we get under contract, they did a pretty significant analysis. Once we get under contract, their next goal is to piecemeal each building apart and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to be at with that allowance. Do you want to do more or do you not want to do more? And just kind of, once we have contract with them, they're really going to spend a lot of time and break that down for us. So
We did have de-scoping meetings with them, and that's why the revised proposals. And like Derek said, the photographs will give you a good sense of what they're including, which is, again, by no means even all of the exterior envelope items, but it'll help.
Yeah.
Every bit helps. And we don't want to spend the entire budget on exterior envelope repair.
I agree. Now, one of the reasons we're doing this, or some of the information that we've learned, obviously, you're probably expected. There's lots of lead paint here. So from a health and safety perspective, this company here has all the requisite, certifications, et cetera, knowledge, experience dealing with lead paint and lead abatement and all that stuff.
correct. And working with Peter, he was great with the de-scoping. A couple comments that he had, they went back and absolutely agreed with and changed their scope of work with. Yep.
All right, so we know what their work plan is going to be to address that. And
Containment, disposal,
Containment,
all that
disposal,
stuff.
That's all in their proposal.
Correct.
excellent. And then their schedule?
They're ready. They're antsy. So as soon as we can get them with an executed contract, as soon as the weather breaks in the spring, they want to get us on the books for the spring and try to get everything done within. I believe they had 4 to 6 weeks to have everything. If we did 1 and 2, I think it was a 4 to 6 week turnaround for the properties. Again, barring weather, but that's their intent.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is, the committee, Peter especially, but the committee as a whole did a great job pulling all this together and putting these recommendations together so that we can make some progress on these important assets. So I thank you to the committee, Derek, for your involvement, Dave, for your involvement, and everyone who was pushing this forward. I think it's we all want to do more but I think we're doing some good stuff with the money that we have to do it right now. So thank you. Any other board members?
Yeah, well, first, Peter, sometimes we have some superstar volunteers and you're in that category. There's like 4 or 5 people that are in your category, so thank you. Deeply appreciate the work you do. My one question is, how quickly thereafter do you think we could get to the priority group 3 elements?
The major, our next committee meeting, we're going to be discussing reprioritizing what our priorities are going to be task-wise with where we're at out there. Environmental concerns are our major issue, and a lot of that's been discovered since the ad hoc committee, and Dave's going to be discussing a phase 2 survey soon, I believe, out there. So we're going to be prioritizing our remaining budget based on what our committee collectively decides. So back to the group 3 is only those 2 buildings, and the one is really dependent on how things move forward, about whether there's going to be sublease to Patterson Farm Preservation, for instance, and we have to discuss how that's going to be organized.
Well, there was a 102-page report that Gilmore did where they did soil samples.
There's soil at every building.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's every building.
okay.
So we're going to be talking about what buildings we're going to, again, do we want to break the environmental up? There's also asbestos that's been discovered in buildings. There's an underground storage tank. So we're going to be discussing there's unlabeled drums.
Yeah.
So-
We've seen those.
Yeah, so for everyone listening at home saying, what the heck is all this? So working through the county, we got, I believe it was Gilmore Associates, completed what they call a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. It's a standard site assessment in the environmental industry through ASTM standards. As a result of that, that's a site visit and desktop file reviews, et cetera. As a result of that, that gives you an indication of what is likely there, where you may have some spots where you need additional investigation. So they've completed or are completing a Phase 2 environmental site assessment for more focus, so they can then establish what that's where you do some actual sampling. So we know, and we've known for a while, that at least some areas around the base of the buildings, there's lead contamination in the upper 1.5 foot or so of the soils, plus or minus. So they're going through and establishing the limits of that and the extent of that, so that we can then, as Peter was just saying, come up with a plan to address that and other things that they're finding in the buildings.
So we're going to be talking priorities with the environmental too. Again, probably like the painting here, we'll establish, if it's a building, again, prioritizing which buildings we're going to be doing that work on. Again, due to, there's a budget. We're gonna stay within the budget.
Yeah. So I'm very much in favor of this, and I want it, the sooner, the faster, the better, because it helps us get momentum and people can see that we're making progress. And so I'm 100% there.
Any other board members have any comments?
Yeah, no, I would just echo what John just said. Peter is fabulous, but I don't want to denigrate the rest of the members of the committee. It is an all-star crew, and they have done a heavy lift, and now we need to make sure we keep it moving forward so that there is something, that can come of all of this.
Yeah. Any public comment? No red light on, so I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Am I allowed to ask Derek a question, because he's sitting there that's unrelated to anything he's said so far?
Hold him down. He's kicking and screaming.
Peter, run.
No, I'm here.
Derek, you mentioned the warm weather, which of course will bring me to this slippery, slopey Woodside Road that our friends have said they're going to fix. How do we get that scheduled so that they're not telling us now it's too hot again?
No, I'm always, I was actually in conversations with Joint Toll Bridge Commissioner on another topic. They will get me an update as soon as they know the plant's making that mix. I don't have that, and they didn't have it either. That special mix wasn't being made, obviously, yet, but they are fully aware that they kind of goofed at the end of last season, but they'll get it done in the spring. So I will stay on them and get you an update.
Okay, I do have a concern that it is getting worse. Worse. Sound like you, Dan. And that maybe they're going to say now they have to rescope it again, because it really feels very warpy. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Maureen's turn.
It is Maureen's turn.
It's my turn.
Madam Solicitor, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The minutes should reflect that the supervisors present this evening did meet in executive session immediately prior to this Board of Supervisors meeting to discuss an employment matter and a litigation matter. Having said that, the agenda item before you this evening on my report is the conditional use application of MRG Stony Hill LP, 748 Stony Hill Road. As you may recall, this applicant was before you on February 5th, at which time they presented their conditional use application. That means that a decision has to be made, and I, as the solicitor, must issue a written decision to the applicant on or before March 21st. That leaves this meeting and the following, your next meeting of March 19th, which would, if you don't decide this evening, which give me a very short time frame in which to write a decision. So having said that, if you are interested in discussing and debating and deciding this evening, just want to provide you with a little background in addition to the application or the applicant's testimony. As you recall, it's a conditional use application, which means it involves the use of the land only. If you approve the conditional use application, it will still have to go before your zoning hearing board because there were zoning issues. If you deny the conditional use application, it stops. It goes no further than this board. With relevance or reference to the conditional use, a few things to remember, and if you don't mind, I'm going to read these so we don't miss anything. The Board of Supervisors, shall grant a conditional use only if it finds adequate evidence that the proposed development submitted will meet all of the following general requirements, as well as any specific requirements and standards listed herein, and that's within the ordinance, for the proposed use. The Board of Supervisors shall require that any proposed use and location, among other things, be, number one, in accordance with the township's comprehensive plan and consistent with the spirit, purposes, and intent of the applicable zoning district. And as a reminder, the district in which this application or which this property is in the historic commercial district. Number two, an improvement shall not be detrimental to the properties in the immediate vicinity. Number three, it shall be suitable for the property in question and designed to be constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be in harmony with and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. Number four, it shall be in conformance with all applicable requirements of this chapter and all township ordinances. And finally, number five, shall be suitable in terms of effects on highway traffic and safety with arrangements for access adequate to protect streets from undue congestion and hazard. So those are the requirements or the general requirements that you may consider in approving the granting of a conditional use and alternatively denying a conditional use based on non-applicability or that it does not meet those requirements. I believe that you all recall the application. I don't have the notes of testimony in front of me or the transcript. Quite honestly, we did not order it because there is an expense involved, and if I don't have to order it, I won't order it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of me, and my recollection will probably be very similar to yours.
Well, I do have one quick question, just to clarify. When we look at the zone that we're in here, commercial historic,
Historic Commercial District.
Yes. If we look at I just want to verify in our zoning code, that would be section 200-36, where we talk about permitted and conditional uses specific to that district under Article 9.
Correct.
Okay.
And, right. So this is not a by right use, therefore it fell into the next category of conditional use.
Gotcha. All right. So we have this description, and we need to get moving to meet our deadline on this, right? Anyone from the board like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to deny the conditional use application based on the spirit of the historical district.
Second.
Second. Any board comments or questions? I guess I'll just, other than a motion and a vote, do you need any direction
I do not. Based on the motion that was just presented, I can draft my decision accordingly.
Okay. Any other board comments or questions? Any public comment or questions? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I anticipated a much longer debate. I don't have anything else on my report this evening, so thank you.
I forget, did you report that we met in executive session and all that stuff?
Excuse me?
Did you report about us?
Yes, I did, at the
Okay,
very beginning. Did I
I was
not?
reading, sorry.
I believe I did.
You did.
I
yes,
did,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, that's
did.
me.
Yeah.
All right, supervisors, I swear, JJ, we'll get to you in a second. Supervisor reports, planning commission will meet on March 10th, that's next Monday. And my only other one right now, I will just say the Stormwater Management Committee, we will see a presentation shortly that will spell out everything the committee's been doing over the last few months here. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, one quick thing related to Disability Advisory Committee. There's a Disability Resource Fair Thursday, April 10th at the New Hope Solberry High School that's being sponsored by State Representative Tim Brennan and our state senator. Just wanted to bring that up. And just also for the record, I believe somebody's birthday is tomorrow, and it's the chair.
And he's trying to keep the meeting going to midnight so we can.
I don't want to.
In the interest of not having that occur, I'm completing that.
Speed it up.
Meeting. Thank you.
Speed it up. All right. Mr. Ross?
No report, but happy birthday.
Thank you, that's so nice. Mr. McCartney?
Happy birthday, Mr. Chair. Golf committee met last Monday, and we discussed things like the bar.
There you go. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Blundy?
Listen, because I'm a rule follower, I had it under other business. Happy birthday, Dan.
Ouch,
So,
look at these.
EMAC did not meet.
must want
We need some EMAC volunteers. You might have noticed under the consent agenda, the sad resignation of Jill Laurinaitis, who is also under the weather. Feel better, Jill. But like everything else, it takes a village, our village, so if you have interest in being a volunteer, there's plenty of openings. Trenton Mercer Airport Review Panel did meet. Much of the presentation that was shared here last board meeting was shared with a broader audience, and there was a fantastic article written in the Herald, so if anyone hasn't had a chance to catch that about what's going on and how Mercer County, is able to kind of ignore our concerns, I invite you to read it and to participate. Reach out to your elected officials. And then zoning hearing met last night. People who are following along with the 6-foot fence that was a 5-foot fence and is now maybe a 4-foot fence. It's been continued to April 15th. That's the next time the zoning board will be meeting, and that is all.
Thank you very much to all the supervisors. JJ, you're up. So, I'll give you a little intro as you're coming up here. Yes. So, do we want to take a 15-minute recess? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
20.
So on discussion items, just as they're getting ready here, as many of you know, over the last several months, this board has taken on the task of updating, revising, and modernizing our stormwater management ordinance. We've put together a subcommittee, which I sit on, members of the EAC, members of the Planning Commission, and staff also participate in. And we've met multiple times with HRG, who will present the findings in the ordinance tonight, to review a number of things, which I'm sure you all will touch on, so I won't get into details, but it's been a very positive experience. Process-wise, tonight is a discussion item. I don't anticipate voting on anything per se relative to advertisement or anything like that. The goal would be to probably do that at our next meeting. And in between now and then, both the EAC and the Planning Commission do have meetings where they can put it on their agenda so that the full EAC and the full Planning Commission can meet and review and provide comments and direction to the board, official comments and direction to the board for us to consider advertisement potentially on the 19th. So with that, take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you. Is this on? Can you guys hear me?
Green light.
Can you hear me now?
You have to bring it, like,
He's
really
giving us the
close.
thumbs up from the back,
Awesome.
so you're good.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello again to the board. As you may remember, I'm Jonathan Robinson. Most people call me JJ. I'm a professional engineer with HRG, specializing in municipal and water resources. And tonight I have with me Junie Alum. I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Yeah, first of all, I'm Junie Alum. I'm a senior water resources engineer at HRG, and I worked with JJ on this, and it's been a real pleasure getting to know all of you and all your stormwater challenges, and hopefully the updates we provide in this document will really help bring some, changes to your stormwater regulations and community, and help improve your community as a whole. So I will get into it because I know it's late and people don't want to hear me keep talking about. I'll actually go over a lot of this really quick. This first couple slides are our agenda today, everybody. We wanted to share with you the goals, the sources, the process of how the updates were done, the actual updates that you will see in the article, by article, and a summary and what to expect next. So. Early on in the process, we met with township staff and various committees in the township to agree on what the goals were that would drive the direction and the updates of the stormwater management ordinance. So when we met with these were the overarching goals that drove the updates that you'll see in the ordinance. And so having a comprehensive and modernized ordinance was important. And served as our basic goals that we built objectives around. Similarly, the goal of the update was to address stormwater quality and quantity, construction standards, promoting innovative BMPs, and while accomplishing, there are things you wanted to accomplish, which was minimizing impacts of unmanaged stormwater, increasing the quality of life, and enhancing resiliency of more frequent intense storm events. So with that, we then took those goals and went back to our team, our water resources folks, and looked at all the various resources that we had in-house. We have a lot of technical experts that do this across the state, and so we were leaning on them. But we also did have several sources that we used in this update, and they're listed here. I'm not going to go over them one by one, but if you all want to look at it, you can take a look. But it was definitely not an effort that was done without a thorough review of additional documents and other sources. So that being said, I'm really glad, I work with JJ a lot, and thank you for getting to know him. He's great. He's a rock star, and I'm so glad that he is going to do this because he got to know your community really well. So I'm going to let him kind of drive because he was with you at all those meetings.
Yeah, thanks, Junie. Appreciate it. One thing I would like to highlight on this sources slide, I know one of the goals of this ordinance was to be forward-thinking and being innovative. And to do that, we did pull in 2 draft documents from PADEP. These will be future standards that will be implemented in the near future once DEP finalizes those documents. And that is the PADEP 2028 model ordinance. That is actually from the draft MS4 permit that was released last month. So all of those new regulations that were actually just put out in draft form, we have implemented in this latest draft of the document. And then also with the PADEP PCSM manual, that will be replacing the current BMP manual once it is finalized by PADEP. But all those recommendations from that manual, we have included in this ordinance as well.
JJ, when you go through the alphabet soup, could you introduce some of, I know
Yes.
what they are because I use them every day, but.
Yes, sorry. So PADEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and PCSM is post-construction stormwater management, and BMP stands for best management practice. That's another term for a stormwater facility or stormwater design initiative. All right, so quickly running through the process of how we got to where we are today in this ordinance. So we kicked off the project early last year, and as you may remember, we initially came to the Board of Supervisors with an initial stormwater management ordinance revision that was addressing what we call the low-hanging fruit, some easy number changes we can make to increase the requirements for stormwater management within the township. From that, we developed a work plan to work together with township staff and some of the various committees within the township to update this ordinance. And to do that, we created a recommendations document. As you remember, I also presented on that previously. From that recommendation document, we created the draft ordinance. We reviewed it with the township, had some back and forth, some additional drafts. Reviewed it with the Stormwater Management Subcommittee. Mr. Chairman Grenier was on that committee, so he is familiar with some of the back and forth we've had with township staff and the committee. And then here we are today with hopefully moving on with Stormwater Management Ordinance adoption. So now I'll get into the nitty-gritty of the Stormwater Management Ordinance updates. As Junie mentioned, I will go through some of the high-level updates by article. I say high-level because it is a 93-page ordinance, so I'm just going to touch on some of the overarching updates that we made. There are more than what I will discuss today, but these are some of the heavy hitters, I'll say. So in Article 1, the general provisions section of the ordinance, we added 2 new sections, the erroneous permit section and the waiver section. Those are basically some of the legalese language that are in line with the draft ordinances. Article 2, definitions, we also added, expanded, and deleted some of the definitions for consistency throughout the ordinance, and probably the biggest area of improvement within the definition section is the impervious area definition. I've discussed this previously in some of my presentations with the board, but in general, we have now solidified that all rocked, crushed stone, and aggregate shall be considered impervious area. Similar to pools, ponds, and other permanent water storage areas, those shall be considered 100% impervious. However, elevated surfaces with vegetation below them, like decks and awnings, those will not be impervious. And then we also have the recommendation for pervious pavement to be partially impervious in accordance with the township zoning ordinance. Any questions on the definition of impervious area at this point? Yes.
Okay. So on impervious surfaces
Mm-hmm.
that are considered meadow, right? What's our threshold for that? Like this is,
Yeah. So I'll get into that in
Okay,
the next
yeah, I'll let you-
article,
yeah.
but yep.
that's all.
Yeah, any other questions on the definition itself at this point? I would just like to add the reminder that the definition of impervious area can be different between the stormwater management ordinance and the zoning ordinance and the subdivision and land development ordinance. This is mainly for capturing additional credit on stormwater regulations, not changing any zoning regulations for how much land cover there can be on a lot. All right, so now this is the meat and potatoes, Article 3, Stormwater Management Standards. This is where most of the updates came to beefing up the stormwater management regulations within the township. The first section that we added within this section is the riparian buffers, Section 303. This now requires all new development and redevelopment that comes in with the township to have easements in place for the greater extent of a riparian buffer. And this not only includes riparian buffers from streams, but also from ponds and wetlands and other water bodies. It also includes minimum management requirements for these riparian buffers. So there will be weeding requirements, removing of invasive species, and also replanting any dead plants that may be within the riparian forest buffer as well. The next section, Section 304, Stormwater Management Facility Standards. This is also a new section. Basically adds construction standards for BMPs, best management practices, and stormwater facilities within the township, and also has a preference for surface and open air BMPs to increase infiltration and evapotranspiration from those BMPs. And we also put a strong emphasis on non-structural and green infrastructure BMPs, using them to the maximum extent practicable. The next section, 305. Again, similar to the stormwater facility standards, this is additional design and construction standards for conveyance facilities of stormwater. That includes your storm sewer, gutters, that would be your curbed roadway sections, and then swales as well. The next section, 306, is general calculation methodologies. Some general updates to these to add some more requirements, including updating the design storm information to current day standards, time of concentration calculation guidance, and Mr. Lewis, to your question about the threshold for existing impervious area, after discussions with the Stormwater Management Ordinance Subcommittee, we have recommended to increase that requirement to 100%. So for all major stormwater management permits, that is development with greater than 5,000 square feet of impervious area, and all redevelopment activities, 100% of the existing impervious area on a lot within the limit of disturbance shall be considered meadow. So basically, you're starting from a green site rather than a site with impervious area on it.
And another way of saying that is what you're modeling as your existing condition. So when you do stormwater management, you have to compare your pre versus post condition. So the pre is existing, post is what you plan to put there. So when you model the pre-condition, you're using it, you're considering it or modeling it as if it was a green site, so that way you would manage all the stormwater that previously had not been managed.
Correct, and in comparison, the minimum requirement is to consider 20% of existing impervious area as meadow. So that we're taking a large leap into the 100%, but I believe that meets the desires of what we discussed in the committee.
And that'll be, for any redevelopment, that will be a significant issue for them, which is fine, but.
Yeah, because a lot of the redevelopment that would occur, the development that's there occurred prior to any stormwater regs. So you would never, it's never been managed for quality or quantity, and that's a major issue.
Correct.
That's being addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
And Dan or the presenters, whoever, when we say redevelopment, do we mean commercial redevelopment or even residential if there is such a thing that's over that size?
It would be for both. It would be for commercial and residential.
And redevelopment is defined in the residential space as knocking down a house and starting anew?
Yeah, we would have to, look at the definition itself. I would say yes, per se. If it is considered within the limit of disturbance, which typically knocking down a house would be disturbance to that existing ground, then yes, it would be considered redevelopment.
Thank you.
All right, so sticking with Article 3, our next section is Section 307, Volume Control Standards. We did increase the amount of stormwater that is captured on a lot by 20%. This will increase the amount of stormwater that can be reused, evapotranspired, and infiltrated into the ground through the volume control standards. The next section, 308, in conjunction with that, as we are increasing the requirement to hold more water on site and infiltrating it into the ground, we are also reducing the amount of stormwater leaving the site by implementing a measure to not exceed 80% of the peak rate. As Mr. Chairman spoke about the pre versus post-development design, when you model stormwater, you model how fast the water is going off in pre-development conditions. That's before you build anything. And then you model it in post-development. That's after you build the site. So once the site is built, it should be holding more water on site compared to pre-development, and it should be releasing it slower compared to pre-development after post-development conditions. The next section, 309, not only did we increase the volume and rate control requirements, we also added water quality standards. So the stormwater that does leave the site should meet the standards set by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. That means the quality of water leaving the site shall not be greater than it is in pre-development conditions compared to post-development conditions. We also added a few new sections, the stream channel protection requirements and the erosion sediment control and grading requirements. Those are consistent with model ordinances, and then we added an additional provision within the hotspot use to write a written stormwater pollution prevention plan to be implemented to sites that are hotspot uses. That is like your gas stations where there could be chemicals that are held on site. Any questions about Article 3 before we move on? Hearing none. The next section, Article 4, this is the stormwater management site plans and reports that will be submitted to the township and township engineer for review. We increased the amount of requirements that should be shown on plans. This will help for ease of review of those plans and also align with the other provisions that we have previously stated. We also added standards for stormwater management reports that will be submitted with the plans for calculation purposes. And we also added a few special submission requirements, including subsurface investigation and infiltration testing requirements, consistent with new PADP standards, a wetland delineation report, and a geotechnical report. And then all of those submission requirements that we stated is clearly summarized in section 404, the submission section. We created a summary table so applicants, whether it's the resident who wants to perform a minor addition to their house or the land development applicant coming in, all the requirements that are needed for their stormwater management report submissions are summarized in a tabular format. We beefed up the sections for the submission review procedures, and then we added a few project closeout requirements, including as-built plans for all of the minor and major stormwater management plans, and also post-construction infiltration testing for our major stormwater management plans.
Section 410, those additions are consistent with the DEP's latest PAG 2 NIPD's.
Correct.
Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
I'm speaking in acronyms again.
Yep.
But there's new, as of December, there's post-construction requirements, and that's basically what we're being consistent with here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to Article 5, Operation and Maintenance, added a few new sections and beefed up the operation and maintenance plans and agreements requirements, and also updated the Stormwater Management Facility Operation and Maintenance Fund, which allows for a maintenance fee to be charged to applicants based on the acreage of stormwater management conservation easements on the lot. Each BMP or stormwater management facility that is implemented, whether it's a minor or major stormwater management permit, will be required to have a stormwater management conservation easement, so that fee is based on the acreage of that easement. And then, speaking of fees, Article 6, we just expanded the definition of what expenses are covered by fees that are paid by applicants. Article 7, Prohibitions. We updated this section to include information about illicit discharges, prohibited dumping of pollutants into waterways and storm sewers, prohibiting open storage of pollutants, and then also adding a notification section that if there are pollutants that do enter the waterways, then the person who is responsible for that pollutant must contact the township and DEP. And then the last article, Article 8, Enforcement and Penalties, we increased the inspection requirements. As Mr. Chairman stated, there is additional PAG 02 or NPDS permit requirements for these inspections, and we have written that into the ordinance so applicants are aware of those, and those reports may be requested by the township in the future. And then Section 803 to 805 is just some additional information about violations and how the township's procedure is for that. And last but not least, in the appendices section, a lot of these were pulled over from the previous ordinance, but there were some updates to the stormwater management site plan application, the site design worksheet, and the post-construction BMP investigation report to be consistent with the new ordinance that is written. I would like to highlight the site design worksheet. This is for minor stormwater management permits. That is for the residents who want to implement a small addition to their house or add a patio in their backyard. If they have less than 5,000 square feet of impervious area that they would like to implement on site, they can submit this site design worksheet, which means they do not need an engineer to engineer a plan for them. They can fill out the worksheet themselves, and there's a nice table and instructions for them to input into the worksheet, and they can calculate the size of their own stormwater management controls for their sites. And that includes non-structural and structural BMPs as well. So in summary, we believe that this new stormwater management ordinance is regulatory compliant with the Act 167 ordinances, the PADEP model ordinance, and also future forward-thinking regulations as well to be implemented by PADEP. We believe this ordinance is consistent with not only those regulations, but also with other ordinances within the township, including the subdivision and land development ordinance and the zoning ordinance. We believe it is modernized, as was previously stated, by looking forward to those new regulations that are being implemented. We believe the ordinance is resilient and sustainable, and we have received approval and concurrence from various township staff members and committees, and we would like to hopefully receive the same from you. Any questions?
Open up to the board, anyone? Go ahead.
So, first one, if we're going to compare this ordinance against any other Pennsylvania municipality, would this be one of the strongest or the strongest stormwater management?
I believe so. In the ordinances I have written and I have used in my day-to-day job, this would be one of the most stringent ordinances.
And then how would it compare with New Jersey?
It
Normally, I
is-
don't want to compare myself to New Jersey. I'd like to preface but yeah.
Yeah, I don't have as much experience in New Jersey. Maybe Mr. Chairman can speak a little bit more on that, but I believe with our conversations, it is consistent, if not more stringent.
And then something had struck me, and I did not know what evapotranspiration was
Yeah.
until this evening. But are there ways that a person who's renovating or building can increase the evapotranspiration of their stormwater management? So planting certain types of trees or items that would help improve that? Because it seems to me that's often really good if you can get that to work and monitor that in addition to all the other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, whenever I mention non-structural BMPs, that's typically your plantings or your woodlands that you can plant on site, your meadows. And that is a provision we included in our small site design worksheet. So now, not only do residents have the capability of implementing a rain garden or a subsurface infiltration bed to manage stormwater, they now have the option to implement plantings, planting trees, meadows to manage stormwater.
The reason I asked the question is, and we've had, I know the zoning hearing board had questions about rain gardens and compliance and all that sort of stuff. It would be helpful, and this doesn't necessarily have to be part of the ordinance, for our staff to give guidance to people, say, if you plant X, Y, and Z that is native to Pennsylvania, this section, you will get this response or this return that will help you, right, in terms of like the short form sheet. Because ideally, if somebody's doing like a new pool or, an addition to the house, the easier we make it, and if we give them ideas that are relatively lower cost but have higher utility, that will help, that will make their experience better, which is kind of what I'm thinking about, because we're balancing both being very stringent because of what we experienced with a good resident experience. Is there something we can provide that says, here's the top plantings that you want that deliver the best value?
Sure, we can provide something like that. The ordinance does state that all plantings shall be native plants to Pennsylvania.
Right, I get all that, but I'm like, if there's one plant that's like 6X of another plant,
Yeah.
that's the plant I'm going to put in there. Or maybe there's a plant that's more attractive, I'll trade that off. Like, I don't really choose what plants occur in my house, but you are going with that?
Yeah, I understand. I believe the subdivision and land development ordinance does have a preferred planting list. Not sure if it follows the same logic
I'm
that
just
you're
looking for,
stating.
the most effective ones, yeah.
We have landscape architects in-house that we work with when we do those planning plans for these type of projects, and they know the how wet tolerant certain ones are.
Could you get closer to your mic? He's flashing the
Oh,
red
sorry.
light at us.
Oh, yeah. I'm like leading to JJ. Yeah, so we have landscape architects in-house that help us and can probably give us their suggestions on a list for all of you. They usually typically highlight which ones are more wet tolerant, which one will have what percentage of evapotranspiration, which ones facilitate that more, so obviously they're no guarantee, but there will be a range, and we can definitely provide you that list.
I would venture a guess that the EAC may have some input.
They may know that too, yeah.
Any other,
Nope, that's all I have right now.
any other board members have comments or questions?
I just had a quick question. In comparison to, because you mentioned it, comparison to other municipalities, this is kind of above and beyond. Is there any specific reason why you would go to the depths that you did with the requirements?
As in, why did we go
Sure.
above and beyond? I
Yeah.
believe that was echoed throughout the committees, township staff, that this is the intent of the ordinance that we would like to do. But also, going above and beyond regulations can help reduce flooding, localized flooding within the areas that are being developed. And on a larger scale, as this ordinance is implemented, it can hopefully reduce flooding on a township-wide scale. It could also improve water quality from stormwater as it leaves development.
Do you have similar municipalities that you've done a similar write-up for, as an example, that it has proven to offset flooding specifically?
To this ordinance extent, no. As I stated, this is the most stringent ordinance, but we have implemented other similar ordinances throughout municipalities in Pennsylvania.
Do you have one off the top of your head that's like
Yeah, I mean,
most flood prone, I would say?
Well, I don't know necessarily. I was just, Silver Spring sort of came to mind in Cumberland County, which is, again, the fastest growing municipality in the Commonwealth
Yeah.
of Pennsylvania, perhaps.
Well, another way, one of the reasons it's like that is that during the course of the, writing this ordinance, the Pennsylvania DEP put out their draft new ordinance that's going to go live in the near future, whereas any other township would probably not have had that written in there because it just wasn't available. So we're trying to, that's going to be what everyone has to deal with.
Do you know in
over the course of the
comparison
next
to
2
that DEP recommendation where this recommendation is it similar or is it above even that?
We are similar in a lot of the areas. With the stormwater calculations area, we do go above that. However, I will say specifically for volume controls, within the new MS4 permit, there is a stress on volume management, and that will be, if you are familiar with pollutant reduction plan of the current MS4 permit, that is going to be replaced by a volume management plan. And so by increasing the amount that development is capturing volume on site, the township can actually take credit for that additional volume that applicants are capturing on site to meet their volume management plan requirement. So there may be a little bit more of a burden on the applicant, however, the township is also receiving that benefit for their MS4 requirements.
Is that also an initiative of the new PADEP plan or no?
So not the additional 20%.
Okay.
That is an additional standard that we are implementing in this ordinance to hopefully, achieve that flood mitigation, water quality, and MS4 permit requirements.
What's the downside to having such a stringent ordinance when it comes to water management? Because there has to be some, right?
Developers will say it'll be increased cost for implementing BMPs. That would probably be the only downside I would see.
And typically, what will developers do to offset that cost is increase the housing price, right?
I'm unsure.
I mean, they're not going to eat it, right? They're going to roll that over to the consumer.
Well, the cost of stormwater management isn't as, relatively to the cost of the development and what they're going to get, isn't that large of a increase, to put in a larger underground detention basin, I don't think that is going to be a huge impact to them. I think I do want to share that Bucks County is currently doing an Act 167 update, and so your timing is quite convenient. You're going to see that other municipalities, as that Phase 2 study is currently underway, will probably be required to update their ordinances as well. So you're probably ahead of the curve, I'd say, but it's not going to just be you. I commend you for taking this step, but the weather is changing. And so I would say that if you have residents that are concerned, this is that was another goal of this. The resiliency and the long-term sustainability of this ordinance was another objective. So what we've seen with a lot of our municipalities that's just doing this on every 2 or 3 year or 5 year cycle is like they're having to Band-Aid and patch just based on the rainfall event for that particular year or what they've seen over the last 5 years. You guys, I commend you because you've looked at that, using that 100% impervious criteria then sets you up for much larger events in the future, and also really does make you resilient. That resiliency goes along with flooding, that you can become a resilient, flood resilient community.
And I mean, this is all based on future development, not current, right?
It's for sure, like, for future development.
Yeah,
There's
correct.
not much you're going to be able
It's
to
not gonna
do for
be-
what.
You're not going to be able to
Yeah.
undo impervious that's
Yeah.
already
It's
there.
not retroactive.
Unless
We're
there's a
coming to your
major
house.
redevelopment.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's say someone owns a large parking lot has never had stormwater management, and they want to redevelop their entire large commercial development. If that's never had stormwater management in the past, then this ordinance would apply because it would be a major redevelopment, and they would have to address it that way.
What would qualify for redevelopment? What percentage of the development would have to be redone, do you know?
So
I don't think it's a percentage requirement. It's an area requirement. So a major.
So how did you define major redevelopment?
A major stormwater management permit
5,000.
is 5,000 square feet of impervious area or greater than 1 acre of disturbance in general, regardless of impervious area.
5,000 square feet of impervious.
Correct.
An acre.
Okay.
And circling back to the cost of stormwater management facilities, I believe with this ordinance stressing low-impact development and green infrastructure and providing methods for that to be calculated into the stormwater management practices, I believe that is an avenue if developers choose to utilize that method to reduce costs by implementing forested areas, calculating that into your stormwater controls or meadow activities within a development rather than, one large basin in the corner of a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, it creates lower density also from a residential standpoint, which also increases prices of entry-level development. I mean, we're already at a price point that's,
Not necessarily.
You know.
Actually, this can do the opposite sometimes where you have greater density development, so then you have more open space around it, and that open space is where you would do your stormwater management.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just wondering why we're going above and beyond kind of what Bucks is going to be doing or what PA is going to be doing. What specifically drove that is I guess what my question is.
Yeah, I think I answered that in a couple ways. That could be through the flood mitigation. That could be additional credits taken through the ordinance for the new MS4 cycle. I believe that would be the two biggest, and improving water quality leaving the site.
Okay.
Yeah, and whenever we talk about developers and, some of them, no matter what they do, will cry, and make claims. In other times, there might just be a unique site or a unique development where they want to try something different than is, I won't say prescribed in here, but is what the general guidance would be. There is still the opportunity for waivers and whatnot for us, that would come before us for review and approval, but it doesn't allow, staff to just say, yeah, go forward and do that, or our township engineer to do that. They'd have to come up with a plan, be vetted by staff and township engineer, and come before us for a waiver. But now, I don't anticipate, based on our discussions, it doesn't sound like there would be a high volume of those, but it would require that we actually take a hard look at it. So there are opportunities to do something different. It's just, it would have to go through a process to do that. Any other board comments or questions? Any public comment on the ordinance? All right. Like I said, this isn't for any vote tonight. It's really a discussion item. It's now going to go to the EAC and the Planning Commission. Planning Commission meets on Monday. EAC is a couple days after that, maybe? But they both meet before our meeting on the 19th. So then we won't have you give this big presentation again on the 19th, but it'll be up for, we'll get those two committees, their feedback, and then on the 19th, we'll look to vote on advertisement.
Sounds great.
Appreciate all the hard work and staying to this hour this evening. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your bedtime is kicking in? Yeah.
Running.
All right. Oh, feel free to stick around. It's an intriguing couple of items.
Best is yet
Please
to
don't.
come.
Oh, yeah. So this next discussion item, kind of sticking with this theme on, somewhat on stormwater management, is one, if you hadn't heard, we were successful in getting a DCED multimodal transportation fund grant for the Taylorsville Road Improvement Project, otherwise known as the Taylorsville Sidewalk that we've been talking, and stormwater management improvements that we've been talking about. I'm going to give estimates, Dave. You can correct anything I say here. Our application was for about $2.5 million. Our award was for about $550,000. So we didn't get everything in one fell swoop. Doesn't always happen that way anyway. But you know, we're thankful that we got as much as we did. Obviously, we would always like more. So this really is, the reason this is on the agenda, and again, this isn't for a vote or anything, but, you know, given that, you know, we only got a fraction of what we asked for, there are, you know, I think we'd like to talk to staff and others about what we could implement with the award that was granted, biggest bang for the buck, and where we go from here. You know, the two main goals of this really, of the sidewalk, one, it's a sidewalk, so it's great for providing pedestrian connectivity between the northern part of the township and through the borough, as the borough is completing their sidewalk as well. So it'll be direct connection there. At the same time, we've also heard from PennDOT that even though Taylorsville Road has very limited, if any, stormwater management facilities on the road, because it does predate all these rules, they're grandfathered in. So it's when we're putting sidewalks in, it requires that we put new stormwater management in, so we can leverage that there. And obviously, when you put in a 8 or 9 inch tall sidewalk, whatever it'll be, in front of Mapleville, that will help to direct potential future floodwaters from that stream to our stormwater management system, and hopefully mitigate future flooding that could occur during major storm events. That's very high level. So I don't know that we have an answer, but I think my major questions are, or seeking advice on what we could do with that, with the grant monies awarded, whether it's implementing the stormwater management first, whether it's implementing, maybe starting a sidewalk from north to south so we get something in front of Mapleville, and then start to fill in the gaps as we go. If we could, I'd like to see some examples of what we can do with it in the not too distant future, and come up with some options.
Yeah, we can do that. Sort of a related item, just to note that some in the audience and the board are aware, we do have that pending fiscal year 25 general appropriations community project funding request. That was the $8 million request that was submitted through Congressman Fitzpatrick's office. So again, obviously there's a lot of moving parts in Washington today or now. However, my general understanding is that again, Congress may be considering the adoption of a budget in March. So we're in March now, with potential for that to go before or make its way to the president's desk in April. So we should, my understanding is that, again, our request is incorporated into that budget at this point. Obviously, it has to go through the congressional review process, and they need to take action. But there is the potential of award happening in the relatively near future, which some of the items that are contemplated as part of the project would be likely eligible under that, using that federal funding. So
stormwater management, obviously.
Yeah, so again, some of the significant improvements that are contemplated on the two parcels that are adjacent to the Mapleville neighborhood, that the township owns both north of the neighborhood and south of the neighborhood. Those, I think, clearly would be examples of things that would fall within the general parameters that we submitted for the funding request. So So yeah, we can do that exercise, but there is, the potential of that funding coming forth relatively quickly. And then obviously, if that money is made available, then that creates additional flexibility as it relates to use of the $550,000. Because the 550, the 8 million cannot be used for, just simply sidewalk. Now, we can perhaps be creative, but the general feedback was that it's not to be used for that specific purpose. But surely there's elements of the project that are eligible. So
I think you're saying, write your congressperson.
yeah,
Make sure, and any other representatives that may have influence over the budget.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Representative Fitzpatrick's been, an advocate for this project and has worked through the process thus far to get it incorporated into essentially the bulk line item. So again, it's not being evaluated on its individual basis. It's being evaluated on, with a host of other projects that have received that consideration and that level of review. So, but yes, all of that can be helpful. So that's a good suggestion.
I was going to say, one thing on the discussion item, there is, obviously we don't know what the appropriation is going to look like. And the one thing I would like to caution people on is, as the chair had mentioned, we may start north to south with the sidewalk to get the stormwater management in.
Yeah.
That may be, and it may be a little while before everything's joined together. And so I want folks to understand, because they're not, and I know I'm going to get these calls, why'd you build a sidewalk to nowhere? Why is it not all connected? Right. The explanation will not work for them, but so I know that that's coming. We're going to have to make that trade-off if that's the case.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not, that would be great. It would be lovely to finish
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And some of that communication is already, I mean,
Yardley Borough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And right, similar to the Yardley Borough
Yeah.
circumstance, starting south, obviously in their jurisdiction, and heading north towards the jurisdictional line. Some of that conversation on sort of a staff-to-staff level has already started, recognizing that while obviously the connectivity element and sort of the economic development element and the recreational element associated with the pedestrian connection, this project, one of the fundamental aspects of the project obviously had to do with addressing the lack of stormwater infrastructure along the roadway. So I've already said that it's likely that if we're prioritizing because of us not receiving full funding, there may be a seeming disconnect, but there's a logic behind it and a strategy behind it.
What's the, how long do we have to use the money?
I'm not sure at this point. Again, we haven't gotten the actual grant agreement or anything of that nature.
So
Yeah, we'll have some time, yeah.
So I know there's folks sitting here in the audience tonight that are obviously very keen on this moving forward. So I think over the course of the next few meetings, we'll start to look at options, see what makes sense given the monies that we have. Hopefully we hear something positive at the federal level. Get that chunk of change. I know we did hear that we have some 2016 bond funds that we need to spend apparently. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have different funding sources that are out there to look at.
Right.
Obviously, we have to prioritize against other major township projects, but this is obviously a big one. So over the course of the next several meetings, I think, whether it's meetings or staff doing work behind the scenes that we find out about a little bit down the road, we get some planning to do and some options to look at.
Yep.
Okay.
I would just add that, I mean, I applaud John's idea that we may have to go north to south, but one of the things we'll have to think about is, we know back in July, there was a lot of water coming down that road, and might an unintended consequence of the borough finishing their sidewalks being that it kind of pushes more water. Some of it might have gone to them, and now it's going to be coming that way. So as we look at how to spread out our pennies, we really have to make sure we don't miss anything.
And to your point, the borough was awarded funding for the Dolington. They're putting a sidewalk, that little stretch
Even
of
better.
Dolington in there. So anyway, that's the basic. Happy to have public comment if you have any comments or questions. But I just want to give a basic, come on up.
Hi, April Bowledge-Clower, resident of Lower Makefield Township. Thank you for the information tonight on the stormwater ordinance and then also on the grant funding. Relatedly, just trying to get an update on what's going on with Highland Drive, because it all kind of factors in there. And I noticed that we don't get the engineer's report anymore, and just wanted to see kind of where we stand with that, just looking at, it's spring, we already got rain, NOAA's going away, we're not going to be able to see the storm coming as it is, so what can we do in terms of Highland Drive and getting an update with that?
Yeah, I mean, Derek,
you want to come up?
Or
Sorry, Derek.
No, it's just, we've been talking about it, so you can.
So in regards to Highland Drive, we actually had an internal meeting today with the RVE and township staff to review. I would say they're basically 98% drawings today for the culvert project. So I would say within, probably not by the next meeting, but maybe the following meeting, before the board would be authorization from RVE to bid the project for construction. So I would say probably about 2 more meetings. Yep.
So it'll be a busy spring of stormwater discussions and all the good stuff. Me too. I don't see anyone online. Any other public comment on that item? All right. Moving on to item 15, other business. The only thing I'll say on other business is that I think our March 19th meeting is gearing up to have a lot of stuff, as we've heard some tonight, so keep an eye out. I think the EAC will likely be here doing a few different things. So there's that. Any other board members have other business? All right, item 16, appointments or reappointments to boards and commissions.
I move to reappoint Christian Schwartz to a zoning hearing board.
Second.
All right, any comments or questions from the board? Public comment? Call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well,
Katie
I'll
will be getting Christian's letter out soon, so Christian, watch your email.
Christian, welcome back to the board, not that you ever had to leave. And just generally, since we've been kind of pushing these announcements about boards and committees and asking folks to sign up, we have had, I've basically given it last month and this month to get a critical mass of resumes and applicants in, so we'll start scheduling interviews, but we have several openings, and now thankfully everyone's getting the word out. We have several applicants, so I'm happy to see that. So keep an eye out to those that have applied for invitations for interviews. We have this again. Item 17. If it's getting late, but if you want another bite at the apple, feel free. This is additional public comment on non-agenda items as needed. Same deal. If you want to say something, tell us your name and whether or not you're a township resident, and try to keep it to 3 minutes. Come on up.
Larissa Luzecki, Lower Makefield resident. I'm sorry, I may not be coherent because it's a little late for me. I just want to follow up on the previous meeting and the possible jet fuel in the Delaware River. Any follow-up? Sure. I mean, is there any testing, any proactive things the township can do to kind of pre-test to see before it hits our homes, before it's too late?
So I can give a couple things, and then Dave can add on. We've been in touch with Energy Transfer a bunch. We've been in touch with the DEP, and we've been in touch with Upper Makefield Township and their consultants that they've hired. I attended the meeting at the elementary school last week. Standing room only, heard from them again. Didn't really hear too much new, to be honest, from what I saw. All the information we do have is up on our township webpage. Energy Transfer, from the information they provided us, has continued to test. I think they're up to 360-ish wells. They're still saying the same numbers that they did before. That being said, we're also looking at testing golf course wells. And those 360 wells that Energy Transfer's tested include both Upper and Makefield Township residents, Upper and Lower Makefield Township residents, sorry. PA American Water has also been testing their intake for those of us on public water, and thus far has found non-detect. I believe, Dave, they're sending out a notice to customers regarding that soon? If they
Yeah,
haven't already?
it should be within the next day or so. So as it relates to the Delaware, Pennsylvania American Water, the public water service provider, did do additional sampling at their raw water intake from the Delaware River, and they've indicated that those samples have come back clear. So there was no apparent impact as it relates to at least the drinking water, and that's being pulled from the Delaware.
How long will they test? Because it may not be immediate.
So a couple other things that are going on right now, based on that meeting and other things that we've heard. Energy Transfer through their consultants they've been issued a notice of violation, I believe, by the DEP. I think today was the deadline for them to respond, which officially kicks off the Act 2 program, which is remediation. As part of that, they've applied for permits to put in additional wells. These wells are to do soil and groundwater testing, essentially determine where the plume is, if there is one, right? Not just the wells that people are drinking out of or should be able to drink out of, but they're trying to figure out the extent, right? And so that they haven't started that yet, but I believe the permit applications are underway. A little too late for my liking, but they're underway. They're also testing Dyer's Creek, which is the surface water body that's in that area.
Hughes Creek?
Huh?
Is it Hughes?
Hughes is also, yeah.
And then-
I think officially probably someone named tributary to something in the books if you're looking it up, but locally that's what they're referred to. So we're trying to get a comprehensive testing of surface water bodies, existing wells, new wells, the Delaware River, our wells at the golf course we're going to test, all that stuff, so we can really just get a baseline understanding of what the extent of this is. I'll also say that I think, with our resolution, Upper Makefield's resolution, we both asked PHMSA, the federal pipeline safety committee under federal DOT to shut down the pipeline until they figure out what's going on. It's operating at 80% of max capacity right now, which doesn't really help us much. In addition to us, the Bucks County Commissioners have issued the same letter to Energy Transfer and PHMSA, I believe. The governor's done the same. Senator San Sierra's done the same. Perry probably has too. I think he signed on to that. So at every level of government that has jurisdiction over Upper and Lower Makefield Township, I think everyone has asked the federal government to shut down that pipeline so we can figure out what the heck's going on. So we're all there, and then the next meeting is March 11th.
March the 11th, yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that's going to be in Upper Makefield at.
It's at the Crossings Church, so Tuesday, March the 11th at 7:30 p.m.
And that's also on our website.
That is on the website as well, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to be engaged. I know I am, I know others are too, in constant communication with Upper Makefield Township officials, sharing information. Sometimes I think we might be getting better and more detailed information than even they get, so they call us to check in on things. So there's a lot of communication here. We just unfortunately don't have a ton of answers just yet. So, sure, keep you posted.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. I like your jacket. I know. Any other comments or questions? Anyone online? Then some of our folks, their favorite agenda item 18, adjournment. Have a good night.